If you stay, you will die. That is the message given to Florida residents as the Sunshine State braces for the worst storm in a century.
If you can leave, leave. Please, just go. Find a shelter, a neighbor, somebody.
A mass evacuation is underway as the Category 5 hurricane is set to devastate the Tampa region with winds of up to 175 miles per hour.
All coming as flights between Britain and Florida are cancelled. The storm is expected to make landfall tonight.
In other news, Tom Tugendhat is out and 4 has been whittled down to 3 in the Conservative leadership race, with another hopeful set to be eliminated later today.
MI5 warns Britain is facing a growing threat from ISIS, and it claims Russia is attempting to create mayhem on our streets.
Elsewhere, the NHS considered moving convicted child killer Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals, the Thirlwall inquiry has heard.
Brewers warn hiking alcohol taxes could spell the end of the affordable pint. That's ahead of the budget. We're asking, should the Chancellor raise alcohol duty?
And in the sport, the Manchester United bigwigs had their executive meeting in London yesterday, and it seems, for now, Erik ten Hag's still in a job. The home countries get ready for the Nations League with an Englishman and a Scotsman making comebacks. And is this the scariest sport in the world? The clue's in the name. Death.
Good morning. Feeling cold in the north, but still plenty of pleasant sunshine in the south. Plenty of clouds, some rain and some showers. So to find out where the sunshine is, stay tuned.
A very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Over 1 million people have been ordered to evacuate Florida's west coast ahead of Hurricane Milton. It's set to make landfall later tonight, UK time.
If you stay, you will die, is the message being given to residents by the Mayor of Tampa, Jane Castor.
Now, forecasters predicted that the Sunshine State will be hit with 15-foot floods and winds of up to 175 miles per hour. This is the worst in over 100 years.
Well, the reality is stark, with even professionals finding it hard to come to terms with the scale of the storm.
Just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
Well, look, there's a seasoned professional being affected by the scale of what awaits. Let's now talk to someone who's awaiting the storm, Florida resident Aaron Pilkington, live from Florida. Aaron, how are you feeling about what's about to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we have high hopes for this right now. I know it's going to be a devastating storm. Right now, the weather hasn't changed very much, but we have seen a little bit of rainfall. And the wind has calmed down, so I guess you could say it's the calm before the storm. But right now we're out in front of Tropicana Field in the parking lot where the municipalities are now loading up a bunch of ambulances and medical supplies for the storm that is to come. So it looks like the preparation is on high alert, and we're ready for the storm to approach us as it's coming towards either St. Pete or Sarasota right now.
Aaron, just give us a sense of how worried you are for yourself, for your home, for your possessions, for your loved ones, because you'll have seen the devastation that Hurricane Helene caused just 2 weeks ago with 200 dead and debris scattered right across the areas affected. You must be very, very worried.
Yeah, we're definitely worried. I would fully suggest that if you are in the St. Pete all the way to Sarasota and even down to the Naples area, that you definitely evacuate. Obviously, don't do what we are doing here and stay. But if you are in this area, please try to get out of town, go up north to Georgia or North Carolina. It's going to be a devastating storm.
But Aaron,
right now,
knowing all of that, Aaron, knowing all of that, why are you staying?
Well, to give a complete honest, for the thrill, I want to experience what it's like to be in a Category 5 hurricane. Also, the apartment that we do live in, we're in a non-evacuation zone right in the middle of downtown St. Petersburg, and I'm on the 6th floor, so I think we'll be okay on that aspect. Like I said earlier, it's more of the flooding and the aftermath that could be an issue. But yeah, I guess that's the only reason I'm staying here, is to experience what this is going to be like.
I don't know if you're born and raised in Florida, but they're talking about this being once in a generation, how devastating this hurricane's expected to be. And experts in hurricanes have been saying there's been this weird sort of lull in September where it would normally be quite rough weather coming off the warm seas of the Caribbean. But they've suddenly seen this huge rapid increase in the number of them in the last few weeks and describing it as the weirdest hurricane season they've ever known. Is that your experience of it?
Most definitely. I've lived here for about 4 to 5 years now. We've seen a number of hurricanes. I have not seen this many hurricanes at this magnitude back to back to back. So it's definitely a weird phenomenon going on right now. From what I can see on the news, it's a mixture of the hot water and just rapid movements in the ocean. So it's definitely been a different type of hurricane season for the Florida residents.
So in your apartment, 6th floor, what precautions do you take?
I mean, so far we haven't really done very much. We've just brought in all the patio furniture. We pretty much, we put a couple of boards on the windows, but there's not very many windows to put boards on. So other than that, there wasn't much for us to do. And yeah, right now we're just trying to keep the vibe high, keep everything positive, and hopefully we get through this storm, and along the storm, we can broadcast it for everybody to see what it's like over here.
Aaron, in the UK, we have very few buildings that are made out of wood. That's not the case, is it, in Florida? Lots of clapboard and wooden structures. You know, how many houses would you say? Do you see a lot of those, and would you be very concerned about those structures that are going to be in the eye of the storm?
Most definitely. If you have a house in St. Petersburg, Florida, all the way down to Naples, I would be very concerned about the damage that this hurricane is going to do, especially if your house is made purely of wood and you don't really have concrete pillars going throughout it. So yes, all of those houses I would be very concerned about, based off of the metrics that we're seeing from this storm and what it's going to bring to this area.
So Aaron, what do you do as a job? I'm just thinking in general about, you know, what happens after the storm hits.
Yeah, so I'm glad you actually brought that up. So we manage a bunch of models and influencers online, and we've actually started a hurricane relief fund last week. We all went out to a couple houses, and we helped rip a bunch of the appliances out and put them on the side of the road. So we've been trying to do our due diligence in the community and help everybody. And obviously, after this storm passes, we'll be doing the same thing. And yeah, our business, we're just trying to help the community the best that we can and stay involved with everything.
Wow, a lot of people are going to need support, aren't they? Stay safe, Aaron. Don't do anything silly. Don't take any risks on your life, and keep us posted on how you get on.
Oh, we definitely will. We're going to try to keep the vibes high, and we'll stay in touch with you guys.
Good luck to you, Aaron. Thank you very much indeed. Stay safe. The time, 8 minutes now past 6 o'clock, and we should say that storm plans to hit land
today at some point later on.
I'm saying by this evening, UK time. So it's not long to go for that.
It's worth pointing out as well, whenever these hurricanes hit over there, a few days later, we get a lot of this gusty, wet and windy weather here. It affects our own forecasts. And also, of course, lots of British people travel to Florida all the time. Those flights are being impacted. Perhaps you've got family there. If you've got any connection to this, let us know. gbnews.com/.
Well, a lot of Brits own property there as well. That's the thing. Politics now. James Cleverly, pole position in the Tory leadership race. Tom Tugendhat, he didn't make it that far, latest to be eliminated. The former Home Secretary took 39 of the 120 votes. He's ahead of Robert Jenrick, who we're going to have on the programme later this morning, and Kemi Badenoch. Meanwhile, it's been reported that the Chancellor could make cuts to tax-free pension withdrawals.
Yeah, this has made critics claim the move would signal another attack on pensioners following the winter fuel raid. Let's get the thoughts this morning of the political commentator Theo Usherwood. Good morning to you, Theo.
Very good morning to you.
Should we start, shall we, with the Conservative
Start with my
leadership?
pension. Should I be taking money out of my pension before they do?
I think you should be worried. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to start with your pension, yes. I mean, so at the moment you can claim 25% of your pension up to a maximum of £268,275, and you can do that tax-free. And what the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is looking at doing as part of plugging that £22 billion black hole is to raise £2 billion by reducing that tax-free allowance down to £100,000. So you'll only be able to take £100,000 out tax-free. And that's going to, the argument from the Chancellor and from the government is going to be, well, it's going to be, this is going to be targeting the wealthiest pensioners, those with the largest pensions pot. But make no mistake, if they go ahead with this, it will have a significant impact. And it will be subject, experts are saying, to legal challenge as well, because that wasn't what people signed up to when they saved that money, when they put that money away.
I suppose the big question will be when they implement it and how quickly they implement it and what lessons they might have learned from the VAT measure that they're seeing all these legal sort of challenges. Because if they, the Institute for Fiscal Studies has said this is a good way of targeting those people who are very wealthy and can raise quite a lot of money, and they're obviously independent of the government. It's the way it's implemented, isn't it?
Yes, and we've seen that, as you rightly say, the VAT removing the exemption on private school fees, and we're expecting them to make some sort of U-turn or delay, because of course that measure was due to be brought in by January 1st.
Why are they so keen to plug in black holes and whatever? We've had big holes, blacker than this, for such a long time. Why are Labour acting so conservative about things?
Well, I think the part of the problem is for the Labour Party, and this is for, this is going back, 20 years, 30 years, is that Conservatives have always been stronger on the economy, and they've always portrayed Labour as being irresponsible, and this has landed with many voters as being irresponsible with the public finances. And so what Rachel Reeves wants to do is she wants to try and build on or create a reputation of being an iron chancellor, somebody who is not going to take risks with the public purse, and therefore she wants to be very clear to the public that she needs to balance the books, and there will be pain as part of that process. What she doesn't want to do is come across as somebody who's willing to shower money right across public money, right across various different parts of the economy, and then voters turn around and say, well, hang on a moment, this is the narrative, same old Labour just being irresponsible with taxpayers' money. And that's why they're very keen to create this idea that the Tories left them a £22 billion black hole, £22 billion, and that is dubious, that is contested.
Yeah.
And then, therefore, they need to come up with these.
But it's playing into a whole different scenario whereby people are saying, see, we told you they'd raise taxes, see, they would do this, when they could avoid that. I'm not saying they spend money, but they don't have to claw it back from the rest of us, is what I'm saying.
Well, they are planning to borrow billions more, and that's why changing the rules, aren't they?
Yeah.
So just explain, because Chancellor Jeremy Hunt of the Conservatives had a particular rule about trying to bring down debt, the national debt, within 5 years.
Yes.
She's changing it so that if you borrow to invest in public services, then that rule no longer applies.
And it also counts, and what she's doing, what Rachel Reeves may well do, it's not confirmed yet, but what we're expecting is that she's going to, some of that debt that falls under the purview of that rule, she's going to now class as an asset, and that would allow her to say, I've got an extra £50 billion worth of headroom, which I can then spend on capital projects. So that's not day-to-day spending. That's not things like the NHS or welfare. That has to be spent on major projects. And we've already seen...
HS2?
I was just going to say, there's a story today about HS2 Light, which will be a slightly slower railway originally than was planned between Birmingham and Manchester, but nonetheless it will be an upgrade on the current West Coast Main Line. But that's the sort of thing they're looking at, and that feeds into this idea of trying to stimulate the economy with economic growth.
Who's going to be the next Conservative leader?
Well, I would never want to try and bet against, place a bet against the Conservative membership. But in terms of the final two, it's looking like James Cleverly and one other, probably Robert Jenrick. And of course, what's so significant about the result last night, when James Cleverly went from third to first place, and I think this is off the back of a particularly poor Conservative Party conference in Birmingham for Kemi Badenoch, where she made a number of gaffes, is that he now has such a lead that he can lend votes to his preferred rival. So, and I've been speaking to somebody in his camp who's like adamant that they just wanted to secure the largest mandate possible from MPs. But make no mistake, they'll be weighing up their options this morning to see who do they actually prefer in a runoff when it comes to the party members, and then they'll give that individual. I think it'll probably be Kemi. It'll probably be Kemi. Well, probably be giving votes to Robert Jenrick.
So you're not sure
Sorry,
who's going to be.
Because Kemi's more of a threat to him when it comes to the membership.
Exactly.
And just explain what happens when the membership picks a leader of the Conservative Party that the MPs haven't chosen as a favourite.
Yes,
because that hasn't ended well twice in the past, has it?
We had particularly with with Liz Truss, the members picked Liz Truss, and she didn't have the endorsement necessarily of all of the MPs, and that ended badly. And I think what one of the narratives that James Cleverly is trying to push across, and we'll be hearing more of this over the next few days, is that actually, look, I have the support of MPs. Now to the members, if you support me, then there's going to be this, if you like, this synergy, for want of a better word, between the MPs and the party members. There's not going to be this dysfunction. Of course, party members felt very angry at the way that they felt that Rishi Sunak was foisted upon them, and they didn't like it.
The other example was Ian Duncan-Smith, where that was disastrous for the party. It will be very interesting. 3:30 this afternoon, we'll find out who probably will be facing Cleverly. All to play for. Thanks very much, Theo.
Appreciate it, Theo. Thank you very much indeed. 6:15 is the time. Still to come, Russia's on a mission to cause mayhem on the streets of Britain, according to MI5. More on that after this short break.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Now, there's a man called Ken McCallum, and he is in charge of MI5, and he said that Russia is up to their dirty tricks again. They've attempted to cause mayhem on our streets whilst the war in Ukraine is going on.
This comes as he claimed Britain was facing a growing threat also from ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and the number of children being investigated for terrorism has dramatically risen.
We're also seeing far too many cases of very young people being drawn into poisonous online extremism. Sadly, 13% of all those being investigated by MI5 for involvement in UK terrorism are under 18. That's a threefold increase in the last 3 years.
Let's talk about where we're going with this. Philip Ingram joins us now. Philip's a senior military intelligence officer, a former senior military intelligence officer. Philip, any change to the script that you would have worked to, that you would have known here? What's jumping out at me is the amount of children, where they come from, how they get them, what are these kids doing?
Yeah, the script is changing. Unfortunately, those that are accessing terrorism, terrorism morphs over many years. It was only a few years ago, it was Irish terrorism. Now it's Muslim extremist terrorism. We've seen extreme right wing coming in. And the children bit is worrying. But that's because so many children are now online. And many of them are are being investigated because they're accessing sites that are constantly monitored by the security services. And those sites are sites that promote terrorism, that give recipes how to make terror devices, that are trying to groom vulnerable individuals to get into terrorism.
Let's bring this alive and right up to date. We heard yesterday on trial Daniel Khalifa, this guy who was working for the Signals Corps, and what he was trying to do in his escape from Wandsworth Prison.
Well, exactly, and he will be one of this 48% increase in state-sponsored or state-related activities that Callum MacDonald mentioned yesterday, where you're finding that the Russians in particular, but the Iranians are heavily involved in this, and other Chinese are trying to recruit people into activities that will either help disrupt our normal activity here. So it could be related to terrorism, it could be related to crime, it's more likely to be related to espionage, but they're also encouraging a lot of the terror organizations and tacitly helping them to try and recruit and groom individuals. The grooming that happens for people to get into terrorism, especially children and other vulnerable people, is exactly the same as the grooming that gets children into the country lines. And a lot of that country lines will be sponsored by different state criminal groups, and that is used by paedophiles to groom children for what they want to do.
What do you think the purpose was of Ken McCullum telling us all about this? Was it to scare us? Because as citizens, there's not an awful lot we can do, or is there? How can we be vigilant?
There's an awful lot that we can do. And I think what Ken McCullum is doing is trying to bring the security service, MI5, that's always been shrouded in a cloak of secrecy, out into the open a little bit more. And all of this affects us on a daily basis. And if we look at terrorism in particular, there is the counter-terror strategy in the UK, which is called the contest strategy. One element of that is prevent. And prevent is stopping that 13% increase of young people and all the other young people actually getting physically involved in terrorism, where it will lead to criminal charges and affect them for the rest of their life, or they go off and carry out a terrorist act. And that prevent duty requires families, doctors, teachers, members of society who are interacting with young people to look for changes. But dealing with terrorism and dealing with the wider threats is a whole society issue. You know what your daily pattern of life is, and you know whenever you go out into your street in the morning or come home in the evening where something's wrong, you get this gut feeling that something's wrong. The security service can't get that gut feeling, but if you've got it, there's a better than average chance that something is not quite right. And that could lead to, if it's reported in the right way, to an investigation that could stop a terror attack or stop an espionage activity happening or something else. And that's why Callum is trying to inform the public about the real threat.
Philip, I was watching a documentary last night, which you will be only too well aware of, on the 40th anniversary of the Brighton bombing, in which the IRA tried to kill Margaret Thatcher at the Conservative Party conference. Now, things have changed. the terror threat, I mean, then the Irish Republican terror threat would have been, you know, top of the pops. That would have been the most important thing. Have they gone away?
No, not in the slightest. Yeah, we had, I think it was about 18 months ago, both the Commissioner of the Garda Síochána, the police in the Irish Republic, and the Chief Constable of the PSNI turning around saying that, you know, the IRA, General Army Council and all of the elements still exist. They still have the mechanisms and the interactions that they had beforehand, which to me reads that they're linked to their political wing still, which is Sinn Féin. And if you go into Northern Ireland in particular, both from Republican terror and breakaway Republican terror groups, but groups that are being labelled as lawless terror groups as well. When you examine them, they're really just criminal organisations, and organised crime and terror comes together. And because they don't want to stop making money, their activities are continuing, but they're still practising a lot of their terror tactics. So since the end of the Good Friday Agreement, I think if you calculated the number of reports that the police have labelled as terror in some way or other, and divide that by the number of days since then, there's one terror incident every 4 or 5 days.
Gosh, yeah, and yesterday, Ken McCallum was saying that the MI5 have disrupted 43 late-stage terrorist plots in this country since March 2017. I was quite surprised that he was so public. I thought he looked like a spy, didn't he? Something about him very much looked the part. But did we used to see that the head of the MI5, and how would they have intercepted these late-stage threats? I mean, what are they doing? Listening with bugs and phones in hotel rooms, following people down the street? I mean, give us an insight into some of their tactics.
Oh, they'll have been doing all of the below and more. Yes, it's important that it comes out, because the measurement of success for the security services keeping us safe, for counter-terror police keeping us safe, is nothing happens. And when nothing happens, people become complacent. So it's important that we understand that what they're doing in the background is keeping us safe. Those late-stage attacks are the equivalent of London Bridge, but they've stopped it before it's happened. The equivalent of Westminster, but they've stopped it before it happened. The equivalent of the tube bombings, but they've stopped it before it happens. This is going on a daily basis. There are over 3,000 individuals under active investigation today in 900 investigations. That's a huge number. Those are all active threats to us today, and this is why Callum MacDonald, you know, it's really important he brings it out. And they will be using, you know, eavesdropping, monitoring website traffic. They'll be using human agents inside organisations to brief them on things that are happening. It's all the good old-fashioned espionage techniques that are needed to gather the intelligence, to pull it together, to keep us safe.
I love it.
Well,
Brilliant.
we can only hope and pray, Philip, that they continue to stop them before they start. Thanks for your insight, mate. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to have a quick look at other news coming into our newsroom on this Wednesday morning.
The NHS considered moving Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals, according to the Thirlwell inquiry. The NHS trust in charge of the Countess of Wester Hospital in Crewe considered the move despite doctors raising concerns about a possible connection between her and an increase in the number of baby deaths in its neonatal ward.
The M42 has been ranked Britain's worst motorway thanks to the number of potholes as well as delays. It was rated in a survey of more than 9,000 road users. It's 40 miles long. It connects Birmingham to areas including Nottingham, Solihull, Tamworth and Redditch.
An image of a swarm of toad tadpoles has won this year's Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. It was captured by the conservation photojournalist Shane Gross whilst out snorkelling, and he beat a record-breaking 60,000 entries to scoop the top award. Images will be on display at the Natural History Museum. Imagine snorkelling through a swarm of toad tadpoles. No, thank you. But I love to see that they've had a record number of entries. I think that shows an increasing interest in conservation and our nature, something that we both really love and appreciate and love to see celebrated.
Did you ever, as a child, catch tadpoles?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one
That's
of the
illegal. You could be thrown in jail for that.
Well, it probably wasn't illegal when I was a child.
Things you used to do, but you can't do anymore.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. It's certainly the weather for tadpoles. There's going to be a lot of damp in the air. Let's get to the weather and Honor Chiswick.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease, and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And great news, the Great British Giveaway could be yours, 36 grand. Have a go.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like on demand. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, there's a lane closed northbound again today for emergency bridge repairs at junction 38 at Huddersfield. Caused delays through the morning rush yesterday, so we're expecting the same again today. In Nottinghamshire, the A614 is closed each way, where cars overturned between Ollerton and Billthorpe. In Bedfordshire, the A421 is closed at Marston Mortain again today for emergency drain repairs. After earlier flooding, diversions are off and back on by the split roads at Beancroft Road. Train services are suspended between Uckfield and Crowborough, where overnight engineering works have overrun. In West Sussex, there's a fallen tree on the A29 near Hardham Village near Pulborough, and on the M5 in Devon, the inside lane's closed northbound for emergency repairs between junctions 28 and 27 from Columpton to Tiverton.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil. Morning, Ben. And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So that's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald. And it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
colour. See if we get a close-up.
So, yeah, so pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, the reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The two diamonds on the side are D-colour flawless diamonds. just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So
Wow.
Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grand's worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give that back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got
Neil.
a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be
Is it big
amazing.
enough?
So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a natural fancy vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So,
Oh, it fits
depends
like
where
a
you're
glove.
buying it from.
It
right?
fits like a glove, Neil.
Oh.
Maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be
It's
mine.
definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A lot going on in the world of sport. Paul Coyte across it all. Man United board members yesterday, they met, and including, as far as I'm aware, Sir Alex Ferguson in all of this. So Eric Ten Hag had to be discussed.
He had to be. So Jim Ratcliffe was there, and Joel Glazer, so the owners, you've got Dave Brailsford and the sporting director Dan Ashworth, they were all in there, all the bigwigs were there. But the thing is, it was in Knightsbridge, so it was in the Manchester United headquarters, London headquarters. And
Which is very beautiful.
See, you've been... Everybody was standing outside. You've been in there.
I know they were going in the back door, so they were going in. I saw the entrance that they were going in there, whatever, all very secretive.
You said it's very high-tech and super glam in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful building.
Yeah, it's all very cloak and dagger, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Talk about MI5. This is like much more... The thing is, nobody actually really knows what was said. They're keeping quiet about it. It's obvious that Eric Ten Hag is going to be one of the topic of conversations, if not the main topic of conversation.
But no indication that he's going to be replaced or anything anytime soon. Whatever it is, they're keeping their counsel to themselves.
Because let's be honest, if they sit there and decide he's got to go, they're not going to go out and say, OK, we've decided that's the end for him. They're going to have, obviously, there's got to be phone calls made. There's got to be meetings with Ten Hag. We're getting close. It's obviously being discussed, and I'm sure it's going to be who the next manager's going to be, because just looking back on the history of football, people don't turn things round from this.
So, well, Thomas Tuchel turned them down a few months ago, but now he's back in the reckoning again.
Maybe they've upped the
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Up the ante. That's what it's all about. It's all about money. Everybody, think about Conte when he first went to Tottenham Hotspur. It was, oh, no, turn them down. Then the next minute, he's there. I wonder why. I wonder what changes.
Also there, Dominic Solanke playing cricket for England. First time in
football. Football for England.
Oh, football, sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's first time in 7 years. 7 years away. He played for about 15 minutes against Brazil in 2017, and he's back playing for England because it seems that Harry Kane is injured. Dominic Solanke's going to come in for him in this game against Greece on Thursday. Here's Dominic Solanke.
It's very hard to get back to this moment. Obviously, I made my debut a long time ago now, so it's been quite a journey. But to get back here it's a great feeling for me and the family.
Those really nice fellas.
Is he?
Really nice. You know when you know you can trust someone because they look you in the eye. You know, and instead of sort of all this around here. Very decent guy, good footballer. So 7 years since he last played. The biggest gap in any England player, though, from playing and then they're left out and then coming back again. Ian Callaghan. Remember Ian Callaghan played for Liverpool?
Yeah, on the wing. 11
years, July 66, so he was in the World Cup squad. Didn't play again until September 1977. So Solanke is nothing.
66, 77.
Yeah. 11 years.
Quick word about Ryan Mason at Spurs.
Yeah, Ryan Mason got very badly injured playing for Hull. You know, I mean, the guy almost died. It was such a horrible injury, head injury. So had to retire. Then he's gone into coaching. He's been coaching at Spurs since. Could be taken over at Anderlecht. I don't know how these jobs come up. Are they advertised in like an Exchange and Mart football
You're
thing?
interested.
I know. It's like, I quite fancy the Anderlecht. But anyway, it looks like he could be going to Belgium for his first managerial role.
Very good.
So good luck, Ryan, if that happens to you. But let's talk about the death diving, shall we?
Death diving.
Crikey,
Right, before we see this, let me tell you, France's Comme Girardot set a new world death diving record. The reason they call it death diving, there's quite a few reasons. They jump off a cliff, but when they dive, they have to who invented this? They have to land on all fours. They have to land on hands and feet at the same time. So here's the new world record, 44 metres up a cliff. There we are. There he is. There's Comme Girardot. Look, hands of... Oh, my goodness me.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness me. It's 106 kilometres an hour he hits the water at. So he's got to hit with his hands and feet. I mean, it looks like it's just a glorified belly flop, isn't it? Look at this.
What is the thinking between hands and feet?
I think all they're doing is just saying, oh, it's just a different way of diving. You know, I don't know how, whether it's... Can you imagine? Has anybody tested how shallow the water is?
I can't handle
that. So this is in Alcamada in Spain. I mean, every time I see it, it makes me just stomach turn.
What's wrong with some people, honestly?
I know. It's all... You know what it is, Isabel? All about attention. That's what it is. Look,
I'm enjoying watching it, but
look at it from here.
You know, the risk to their lives.
That's our next holiday, Coity.
Yeah, I think so.
Alcamada.
Yeah. I mean, what are these people doing? They're just swinging around.
They're happy to be alive, Coity, is what they're doing.
I mean, look at that. And there he is.
Oh, dear. Right.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank
Leave it
you.
there.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much indeed. Still to come, water companies, they're going to pay over £150 million back to you as a customer. It's all a lot of nonsense because the most you'll ever get is a tenner. Why bother? We'll talk about that in the paper review next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Italian wine in Britain is worth a whopping £891 million and can be described as a Prosecco phenomenon, apparently. So joining us now to tell us more about why these Italian bubbles are so popular is Ed Smith, the founder of The Emissary, a British-based Prosecco brand. Good morning, Ed.
Morning, guys.
Thank you for coming in, and you've done just as we asked. You've come laden with booze and bottles and glasses.
Exactly.
So the definition of Prosecco, Tatiana, you were saying earlier, is sparkling wine that's been made in certain areas of Italy. Which areas?
Exactly. So the Prosecco region is northeast Italy. It's about sort of an hour north of Venice. Foothills of Dolomite Mountains. Very, very beautiful part of Italy. Veneto, exactly. Well done.
Show off.
I'm half Italian, so...
well, there we go. OK, you should be teaching me.
No, that's it.
So, yeah, so like Champagne, that has to come from the Champagne region in France. Prosecco has to come from the Prosecco region in Italy. And it's different to Champagne and other sparkling wines, like English sparkling wine, in that geography, like we just mentioned, has to come from that region in Italy. The grapes that are used are different. So Prosecco has to be at least 85% Glera, which is the native grapes of the region. And it's most importantly the method. So Champagne and English sparkling wines use the traditional method, where second fermentation, which produces the bubbles, happens in the bottle. Whereas Prosecco uses what's called the Charmat method. So the second fermentation happens in steel vats. It's a much quicker process, and that's why Prosecco is a bit more affordable.
So the Emissary is a British-based Prosecco brand.
Yeah.
So is it made in the UK?
No, made in Italy.
Yeah, that's why you can call it Prosecco.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't call it Prosecco unless it's made in those two regions.
Great. So can we get stuck into some of these? That's the most important thing of this morning.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here come your papers with Dr. Rennie Honderkamp and Scarlett Maguire. And this whole business, Rennie, about the water companies and what they're having to pay back. I mean, this is another lot of nonsense, and I have to base attack Ofwat for this, because if we're going to get any money back, if they're going to be fined, it will only ever benefit any customer a maximum of £10.
I know.
It's a nonsense.
It sounds like such a lot of money, doesn't it? £157 million. It's nothing to them, and then it will go back onto the bills while they continue to do everything that they've continued to do. I really do feel that with the water companies, and it's odd I'm going to say this, that I think they should be allowed to go bust and take them back into public ownership.
Well, that's their threat, isn't it? Their threat is that they will go bust because they can't pay their bills, they can't do their investments. But I agree with you. What the hell are they doing with the licence? Just take the licence off them then after that.
But what's even worse, I mean, I agree with everything you've said. What's even worse is that they're still getting bonuses. And you realise that the bonuses are not about whether they're doing a good job. No. The bonuses are about, are they making money? Yeah. It's all about making money.
Scarlett, the bonuses will dwarf this fine significantly.
I mean, it's really, really shocking. And you're absolutely... I mean, it shows... I mean, the water company should never, ever have been privatised because... We don't. It's not like we get a choice, you know. I mean, I'm Thames Water. I have to have Thames Water, and they are appalling.
If I didn't like my mobile phone provider, I could just walk to another one, and customers can actually have power then.
Yeah,
Thames Water.
But this happened before all that evolved. This was in the 80s, wasn't it?
When it was privatised.
These companies were privatised.
I know, but I mean, it's crazy that it's privatised and then they're owned, of course, by foreign companies or foreign governments.
Now you see, that brings up another subject. What were we talking about?
Well, we've got this investment forum the Labour Party are hosting on Monday, desperate to attract lots of foreign money into the country because you've got to try and do something to get growth.
No, my point is this. All our airports are owned by foreign companies, right? Forever. They're a disgrace. They've gone totally downhill. Absolutely Spanish companies owning things right, left and centre.
Australians yesterday and that big announcement on buses in Northern Ireland.
All
Australian
of our energy is mainly owned by overseas people, all of our trains.
So they get the benefits and they don't emotionally become involved in all of this.
No, I mean, of course it's right. I mean, there are certain things... I mean, trains is another where they pretend you have choice, but actually, of course, you don't have choice. I mean, if you're going to Liverpool, you have to go on Aviva, really, another appalling company. I mean, the good thing is trains are going to be brought back because they're only short franchises, so it doesn't cost money to back. But the problem with the water companies is to bring them back into public ownership. And they did need massive investment before they were privatised. I mean, there's no question that there's Victorian plumbing under our roads, but nothing's happening.
OK, talking about now foreign interest in this country, Rennie. Russia plotting mayhem in Britain. This was the head of MI5 yesterday telling us we're all doomed.
Yeah, this was quite interesting because... It's a massive story, and if you actually read into the detail of the story, it's because of online stuff that young people are reading. That's the crux of it. The young people are being radicalised by online stuff, and much of it is coming from Russia, and I'm sure it is, I don't doubt that for a moment, trying to influence what we do and cause mayhem here. But actually, the real story there is that Iran are the major protagonists on this. And in the last 2 years, 20 terror plots that have been propagated online have been foiled. And that's not the headline. The headline is it's Russia. I think we have a massive problem with Islamist extremists in this country that we should be able to talk about. And once again, the press are just burying that in the detail.
Actually, if you look at... I mean, yesterday, the Mail Online, I don't know whether they've still got it, did a thing about Islam extremists and right-wing. And it's completely changed. And I've had meetings with counter-terrorism people, and they say the problem is no longer Islamist, right? The problem is lone wolf right-wingers. And
that is so not true.
Well, I'm really sorry that that's what the statistics show, and
what the statistics show is 75% of people on our watch list are Islamist extremists. 75%.
Hold on, but people on our watch list, the thing about Prevent is that it doesn't work very well. But I don't think the Daily Mail is a particularly left-wing organisation. And what they did was they showed year after year how it began about Muslims, and actually now what we're talking about is the far right, and most of it is, as you say, is at home on their computer, on their laptops. But even then, actually, if you look at it after something has happened, people knew that it was going to. And so actually what we have to do really is, I'm afraid it's boringly back to neighbourhood policing, is that you need to go right back into the
But I suppose the issue with the Iran and the Russian threat, you know, people often say with GB News, why are we talking about these far-off crises, these far-off conflicts? Well, actually, if it's coming home to roost and making us a target, then it's relevant to each and every one of us. And this comes just what you're talking about Russia there, Renee. We heard just last week, didn't we, about how the Russians had recruited an Irish agent to exploit Brexit tensions between the UK and Ireland. So the Russians are definitely interfering and meddling, and a lot of it is because of our support for Ukraine.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if Trump gets in, we have real problems because he and Putin...
well, they're good friends. There's been seven interactions since 2021 or something, which a lot of people will raise their eyebrows at. Did he really need to be sent COVID tests personally by President Trump?
Very strange.
He is very paranoid about his health, Putin.
Isn't he? Yeah.
So, Renee, Downing Street is like a crack den. Says who?
Well, of course, says Boris, because you know what Boris knows how to do? He knows how to sell a good book, and he knows how to write headlines that are going to get on the front pages. This one has not just made it into the Star, it's made it into the Times as well. And... I read into that story and it was really dull, actually. It was nothing like a crack den. There were no pipes lying around.
No illegal drugs. Theresa May was law-abiding, former Home
I was going to say, look who he took off. I mean, Theresa May, crack den.
So apparently when he took out the carpet, then it looked like a crack den. Well, I've never been to a crack den, so I don't know if they have carpets or not. Maybe that's what actually happens in a crack den.
What on earth did he mean?
I suppose he was trying to justify it was OK for him to have gold wallpaper at the expense of a wealthy donor, whereas it's not OK for Starmer to have any wealthy donors contributing to his life, I would assume.
I guess you take your clothes with you when you go, you don't take the
Maybe, yeah, that's true, but you can leave it to the incoming Prime Minister.
Who got rid of it? There is no longer the gold wallpaper.
Rishi Sunak didn't like it.
Well, obviously...
Well, you see, I think gold wallpaper is less of a sin than getting your spectacles and your suits and your wife's clothes from a donor, personally, because if you're doing up Downing Street, you're doing it up for the good of the nation. It doesn't matter who comes in.
No, it's his personal flat, which nobody would see. His gold wallpaper.
It's all part of Downing Street.
Well, no one's allowed in there apart from Boris and his wife.
How do you know no one's allowed in there?
Well, no, it's for his family. It's
I've been in there.
In his personal flat.
Personal flat. Oh. He invited me to Gordon Brown and I had a drink up there and whatever.
There we go.
That was number 11. Because I was in number 10 with Alistair Darling.
Yeah, Boris lived in number 11.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, for the greater good of the building...
But it wasn't, because it was all taken down.
What?
I mean, obviously, Rishi Sunak, or whoever came next, because they seem to swap number 10 and number 11
But then we've got
lot.
Rachel Reeves taking down all of the pictures, all of the paintings and portraits in there and storing them away. So they take things down that are worth a fortune and have cost a fortune. That's what they do.
Well, there you go.
I don't understand what Rachel Reeves taking...
Well, you just said that we took it down.
No. But to take wallpaper down, they must pull it off the walls.
Well, no, people do redecorate, Scarlett. It's quite common.
I know. I was just thinking, Rishi must have done it right away, mustn't he?
And also, he's got plenty of money, so you'd think hopefully he paid for that himself.
He did say he paid for it himself.
There we go.
Ladies, thank you very much indeed for the moment. Looking forward to having you back again at 22:08.
Yes, in the meantime,
this morning.
Let's have a look at the forecast with Honor Krizik.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in South Yorkshire, there's a lane closed northbound at junction 38 at Huddersfield again today for emergency bridge repairs. We're expecting that to cause delays as we head towards the morning rush. In Nottinghamshire, the A614 is closed each way between Ollerton and Billsthorpe, where a car's overturned. In Bedfordshire, the A421 remains closed at Marston Mortain for repairs after flooding. Diversions off and back on by the slip roads at Beancroft Road. Train services between Broxbourne and Liverpool Street Station in London have been stopped because of an incident. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour, and queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In West Sussex, on the A29, there's a fallen tree south of Pulborough. On the M5 in Devon, there's a lane closed northbound for emergency repairs between junctions 28 and 27 from Columpton to Tiverton. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning. If you stay, you will die. That's the message given to Florida residents as the Sunshine State braces for the worst hurricane in a century.
If you can leave, leave. Please, just go. Find a shelter, a neighbor, somebody. Go inland if nothing else. You know, just get out.
This is as strong as it gets, Category 5 hurricane. A mass evacuation now underway, and when it hits later on tonight, it will be It'll devastate this whole region in Tampa. Winds reckoned to be 175 miles per hour.
Well, this comes as flights between the UK and Florida are cancelled, with the storm expected to make landfall tonight.
In politics, Tom Tugendhat is out, 4 are whittled down to 3 in the Conservative leadership race, with another hopeful set to be eliminated later today.
The Chancellor said to be considering cuts to tax-free pension withdrawals after the government's winter fuel raid. What does this mean for pensioners?
MI5 warns the country is facing a growing threat from ISIS, and it claims Russia is attempting to create mayhem on the streets.
Elsewhere, the NHS considered moving convicted child killer Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals, the Thirlwall inquiry has heard.
Brewers warn hiking alcohol taxes could spell the end of the affordable pint. I thought that had ended, but anyway. We're asking, should the Chancellor raise alcohol duty again?
And in the sport, the Manchester United bigwigs had their executive meeting in London yesterday, and it seems, for now, Erik ten Hag's still in a job. One of the greatest Spaniards to play football has announced his retirement in tears. And in tennis, Francis Tiafoe faces a very big fine after a McEnroe-esque rant at the umpire with 13 expletives. I counted them in the space of about 30 seconds.
Good morning. Feeling cold in the north, but still plenty of pleasant sunshine in the south, with plenty of clouds, some rain and some showers. So to find out where the sunshine is, stay tuned.
The time, 2 minutes past 7 on this Wednesday morning. Good morning. Thanks for your company. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast.
What we thought we'd do is maybe start this hour looking at the political situation as to who's going to be the new leader of the Conservative Party and what's happening.
Yes, well, big developments yesterday with James Cleverly surging into pole position in the leadership race as Tom Tugendhat was knocked out.
OK. The former Home Secretary took 39 of 120 votes ahead of Robert Jenrick, and 31, he was on 31, and Kemi Badenoch sitting on 30.
In other political news today, it's being reported the Chancellor is considering making cuts to tax-free pension withdrawals for the wealthiest pensioners, with critics claiming the move would signal another attack on this demographic, following on from the winter fuel raid.
Well, this is the whole thing as we speak to Theo Usherwood, our political commentator, on this today. You know, people are going to feel, we voted, there's nothing we can do about this now. We weren't told this was going to happen. This is a tax on people who have worked hard their whole lives. They finally cross the finish line, and then she hits them. She takes the money away from them that they had worked so hard for.
So, of course, during the general election campaign, Labour made a promise not to tax working people, and Keir Starmer defined that as somebody who couldn't write themselves a cheque if they got into trouble. And so they said they would safeguard national insurance, the triple lock, this is income tax and VAT rates. But what they didn't talk about, and this is where we saw a lot of pressure from the Conservatives, but it amounted to nothing in terms of real terms because, of course, Labour won that 170-seat-plus majority. They didn't admit to what they were going to do around the fringes. We're talking taxes on pensions, taxes on dividends, potentially capital gains. And this is what Rachel Reeves is now looking at to plug that £22 billion black hole that the Labour Party insists they inherited. And it's a dubious thing because, of course, they've given £10 billion in pay rises to public sector workers, including train drivers, which they got a 14% pay rise, by the way. So
worth pointing out, inflation's at 2%, isn't it? So 14% is absolutely enormous.
So this is what Rachel Reeves is looking at doing in terms of plugging that black hole. And then she's also looking at changing the rules for borrowing, which would allow her to take an extra £50 billion for things like HS2 as well. But there is a danger with that, in that the bond markets suddenly put up the interest rates because we have, on long-term bonds, and that we suddenly end up, that filters through to mortgage costs as well, because of course the markets will look at that extra borrowing and say, well, hang on a moment, you're not as secure as, but the UK government isn't as secure as perhaps it would have been if it actually stuck to its strict fiscal rules.
Can we talk about this big investment fund summit that's taking place on Monday? And we'll probably cover it on the programme, but it's this debate about the role of foreign investment. Now, the government, and it has to be said, the previous government, absolutely desperate to get in foreign money because essentially that plugs these big gaps. And I think it's something like 25 billion that they're hoping to raise on Monday. A lot of people get upset about foreign investment into our infrastructure, whatever it might be. What's your view on that? Because, you know, without that foreign money, and that's one of the arguments around the non-dom status and not adjusting that, we'd be an even worse situation, wouldn't we?
Yeah, you're quite right. We're heavily reliant in this country on foreign investment. And, of course, Labour has big plans when it comes to GB energy, you know, huge number of wind farms, onshore wind farms it wants to create, and as well as, you know, securing, you know, things like HS2, the extension we're talking about now, an HS2 Lite. And that will rely in large part on public sector investment, but there isn't a huge amount of money floating around in the Exchequer at the moment. It's going to also rely on private sector investment, and much of that money will come from investors overseas, willing to put their money into, say, developing Euston train station, and then see the dividends of that later down the line, when, of course, more people are willing to travel to the north of England or to the Midlands as a result of a faster train line.
Can we talk about the Tories?
Of course we can.
We've seen Tom Tugendhat bowing out. I suppose naturally his votes would probably fall now from MPs to Cleverly.
Yes.
Although, do you think there might be some horse trading going on, and perhaps might Cleverly supporters be wanting to back his biggest threat before the members, who is Kemi Badenoch?
This is what your political editor Chris Hope picked up on last night very, very quickly, and that is that James Cleverly would rather face Robert Jenrick in the final two before members rather than Kemi Badenoch, who has, I think, a lighter touch with the Conservative Party members. They prefer her, and therefore, in this final round, we could see some of his supporters actually going to vote for Robert Jenrick, because they would much prefer that he faces off against Robert Jenrick than Kemi Badenoch, because we saw how popular she was up in Birmingham with the party members. She made some gaffes in the wider media.
You described it as a terrible conference.
I think it was a terrible conference in terms of the British, you know, voters and what they saw about maternity pay. But at the same time, you have to be honest with yourself and recognise that Conservative Party members do like her, and I think there's always that. And Keir Starmer, you know, when he became Labour leader, recognised that he had to appeal to those who voted for Jeremy Corbyn first time round, and then of course he tacked to the right and was widely criticised by the left of abandoning Labour values. This is something that isn't just on the Conservative Party; it's also a feature of the Labour Party as well. It's politics at its most brutal.
Politics at its most brutal. It's coming to the 40th anniversary this week of the Brighton bombing, the attempt on Margaret Thatcher's life, 5 people killed on that. Do you think something like that has any resonance today?
I think with the younger generation, you could speak to the younger generation about it, and I think it would be lost. It'd be lost on them. But I think for many of your viewers here at GBNews, they will remember what happened in Brighton. They'll remember how close that attempt on Margaret Thatcher's life was. And they'll also remember not just what happened in Brighton, but also what happened during the Troubles, what happened up in Warrington, what happened in what we saw in Hyde Park. And I think it will bring back memories, I think, for many of the families who've been affected by, you know, who were affected by the Troubles as well. I think it's important, isn't it, that we keep these, we recognise these events happened. I mean, they're part of our history.
Well, also to avoid history repeating itself.
The political significance does not disappear, because when you look at the Ukraine situation and what's going on in the Middle East and whatever now, the IRA at the time said one bomb in England was worth 100 bombs in Ireland, which no one bothered about, no one reported on, whatever. And that's why they changed their tactics. What do you make about what Russia and Iran are plotting, and what the head of MI5 is so worried about with them?
I was in the briefing yesterday. It was at the Counterterrorism Operations Centre in London, and it was frightening. Make no mistake about it. And I think it's important, actually. We tend to see, and I think this is maybe it's the way it's reported in the media, I'm not sure, but we tend to see these events, foreign governments, we tend to think, well, it's happening in Ukraine, it's happening in the Middle East, it has no bearing on our lives. But Sir Ken McCallum, the Director General of MI5, was very clear that events in the Middle East were filtering through to this country, and that we were, these MI5 officers work behind the scenes, and they work ferociously hard to keep us all safe, and then we end up in a, we could very well end up in a situation, and Sir Ken McCallum was honest about this, that we see a large-scale terrorist attack in this country as a result of the politics of the Middle East coming over to this country. We've already seen anti-Semitic attacks in this country, and his officers are working and the police are working very hard to ensure that we don't see something on a much larger scale.
Theo, maybe we'll talk about that again later. Thanks for your analysis on all those things political. We just want to say to you, if you're watching today and if there were terrorist events taking place in UK, would that affect your view on the Middle East? Would that affect your view on Ukraine? Let us know. Should it affect how we deal with those countries and what way we support them or not? Have your say.
Also, we have Robert Jenrick, who came second in the Conservative leadership race yesterday, coming on the programme just after 9 o'clock, so stay tuned if you want to hear from him.
Over 1 million people have been ordered to evacuate Florida's west coast. That's ahead of this hurricane. The hurricane's called Milton and is set to make landfall tonight, UK time.
If you stay, you will die, is the message being given to residents by the Mayor of Tampa, Jane Castor.
Forecasters predict that the Sunshine State will be hit with 15-foot floods, winds of up to 175 miles per hour. Those are the worst in 100 years.
The reality is stark, with even meteorologists finding it hard to come to terms with the scale of the hurricane.
It's an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
Let's now hear from Florida resident Aaron Pilkington.
Seeing a little bit of rainfall and the wind has calmed down, so I guess you could say it's the calm before the storm. But right now we're out in front of Tropicana Field in the parking lot where the municipalities are now loading up a bunch of ambulances and medical supplies for the storm that is to come. So it looks like the preparation is on high alert, and we're ready for the storm to approach us as it's coming towards either St. Pete or Sarasota right now.
Aaron, just give us a sense of how worried you are for yourself, for your home, for your possessions, for your loved ones, because you'll have seen the devastation that Hurricane Eamonn caused just 2 weeks ago with 200 dead and debris scattered right across the areas affected. You must be very, very worried.
Yeah, we're definitely worried. I would fully suggest that if you are in the St. Pete all the way to Sarasota and even down to the Naples area, that you definitely evacuate. Obviously, don't do what we are doing here and stay. But if you are in this area, please try to get out of town, go up north to Georgia or North Carolina. It's going to be a devastating storm.
But Aaron,
right now,
knowing all of that, Aaron, knowing all of that, why are you staying?
Well, to be a complete honest, for the thrill, I want to experience what it's like to be in a Category 5 hurricane. Also, the apartment that we do live in, we're in a non-evacuation zone right in the middle of downtown St. Petersburg, and I'm on the 6th floor, so I think we'll be okay on that aspect. Like I said earlier, it's more of the flooding and the aftermath that could be an issue. But yeah, I guess that's the only reason I'm staying here, is to experience what this is going to be like.
I don't know if you're born and raised in Florida, but they're talking about this being once in a generation, how devastating this hurricane's expected to be. And experts in hurricanes have been saying there's been this weird sort of lull in September where it would normally be quite rough weather coming off the warm seas of the Caribbean. But they've suddenly seen this huge rapid increase in the number of them in the last few weeks and describing it as the weirdest hurricane season they've ever known. Is that your experience of it?
Most definitely. I've lived here for about 4 to 5 years now. We've seen a number of hurricanes. I have not seen this many hurricanes at this magnitude back to back to back. So it's definitely a weird phenomenon going on right now. From what I can see on the news, is it's a mixture of hot water and just rapid movements in the ocean. So it's definitely been a different type of hurricane season for the Florida residents.
So, in your apartment, 6th floor, what precautions do you take?
I mean, so far we haven't really done very much. We've just brought in all the patio furniture. We pretty much we put a couple of boards on the windows, but there's not very many windows to put boards on. So other than that, there wasn't much for us to do. And yeah, right now we're just trying to keep the vibe high, keep everything.
Aaron Pilkington with his story there. And when you think about it, imagine waiting for that to strike.
I mean, there's something not right there. 6th floor, and he thinks he's going to... No, thank you. No, I'll be out of there.
Yeah, but, you know, and your thoughts would go, I mean, obviously in this country we don't have to endure anything like that. Right. But it's my biggest fear ever in the future to buy a house that's in a floodplain.
Same, absolutely. Yeah, why would you?
And then how could you ever sell it? You know, and those of you who go through this and those of you who have your homes flooded, and indeed Hurricane Milton, there will be repercussions there in a week's time or so. Yeah. We will get the heavy downfalls of rain and things that will emanate because of that. And just an awful situation on all of this. You can say what you want, but this is climate change and it is happening and the seas are warmer. And therefore, you were saying to me today that the new system, when the sea warms up and it makes these hurricanes stronger and more lethal, they now will have to revisit the grading system.
They're debating. There's been some discussion about whether or not to introduce a Category 6 because the ferocity of the winds is stronger than they've ever seen before. This particular hurricane, it's the speed with which it came. It was just a 40-mile-an-hour storm about this time yesterday, and then you saw the meteorologist there move to tears, saying this is absolutely horrific, was his words, when he saw it whip up to a Category 5. It then went down again and then whipped back up. They're very unpredictable and they're record-beating. So what a strange hurricane season it's been this year. We're keeping a close eye on that story. If you've got any involvement, family in Florida, flights being cancelled, we'd love to hear from you, pop you on the air as well. Keep this GB News relevant as well.
Unpredictable and lethal. And you could be talking about the subject of our next story because the NHS considered moving Lucy Letby, the nurse, to one of Britain's largest children's hospitals. This has come out at the Thirlwell inquiry.
Yes, the NHS Trust in charge of the Countess of Chester Hospital and Crewe considered that move despite doctors raising concerns about a possible connection between Nurse Letby and an increase in the number of baby deaths in its neonatal ward. Now, we're joined now by CEO and founder of Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes, on this one. Marilyn, good morning to you.
Morning.
Marilyn, were you able to watch, or you've obviously heard or read the stories that are going on, worrying that Lucy Letby's conviction is unsafe? And I would have been very dismissive of that. I would have thought it's obvious she did what she did. Then you hear these counter-arguments. What's your view?
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you, Eamonn. I mean, when this first came up, I thought, guilty, 100% guilty. And then the questions started coming up, and there was lots of concerns, funnily enough, in America about whether she was guilty or not. And there's quite a faction of people over there. But the people I feel so sad for are the parents. I mean, to lose a child anyway is horrific. But in these circumstances where you still don't know the truth, they are the real victims now, aren't they? Yeah. The only person that knows the truth, of course, is Lucy Letby. Who knows? I don't know. But what I do know, because I've teased out a lot of stuff, is that it is beyond... Sorry, you have to have beyond reasonable doubt, don't you? There is doubt. There's a lot of doubt. Now, I'm not saying, is she guilty, is she not? Who knows? But there's a lot of things that are not right. There is no fingerprints, no forensic evidence, which, you know, it's the whole thing, and the conviction is based on circumstantial evidence, really. I mean, you've also got the, I would say, the toxic atmosphere in the management of the NHS. I do a lot of work with the NHS, and it's not so much on the wards, but it's the higher levels up, the management. If you whistleblow, and I've heard this from nurses, doctors, if you whistleblow, you pretty much say goodbye to your career. But there was an article that said that, you know, health professionals, leading microbiologists, GPs, biochemists, came forward with what their thoughts were, but they were terrified of giving their name because of what might happen. And you've got to look at the circumstances here. The staff were spread too thinly. The hospital was known to take in a high intake of very prem sick babies. And there were times when Lucy Letby wasn't on the ward. And the paediatrics and the neonatals,
Marilyn,
staff.
there was the state of the Countess of Chester Hospital in Crewe was appalling. It was pretty bad. The hygienic standards as well. I'm not advocating. I mean, what do I know one way or the other? But there was sewage coming through the taps in a neonatal ward and whatever, and the disease could have been spread so easily.
I think it certainly shed a light on the terrible state of maternity services in this country. But there have so far been 2 attempts by Lucy Letby's legal team to overturn her conviction, and they haven't met the legal threshold to do that. She has appointed a whole new legal counsel. So far, they haven't persuaded anyone that her trial was unsafe. And the families of those involved have urged the public not to speculate, not to guess, because it's actually hugely hurtful to them and undermines the whole process. I personally choose to have faith in the legal system, and let's see what comes out of any future attempts to appeal her conviction. But, imagine being the families and everybody having conspiracy theories. We didn't sit through this trial. This trial went on for 9-10 months of deep, complicated evidence. If we haven't sat through it all and seen it ourselves, I personally think we shouldn't have an opinion on it. What do you?
I totally disagree with you.
I totally
disagree with you. The first thing you do is question the legal system.
Yeah, and that's what happens that's what happens in the court of law, and that's what the whole legal system is built around, is that you have to have a legal threshold and it has to reach that. And so far, you've got this woman who's been convicted of the most horrific crimes, and she hasn't been able to, with all the crowdfunding to get her extra support and legal support, hasn't been able to persuade anyone that there's any doubt in her case legally.
So are you saying the legal system can never be wrong?
I'm not saying that, and of course I'm not. But what I'm saying is that's why there's an appeal system, and you have to reach a threshold to bring the doubt in, and she hasn't managed to do that. There have been 2 attempts, and even letters to the Home Secretary. No one's been convinced yet that there's a strong enough argument.
I'm not. I see so many cases on different types of abuse cases, etc., and I don't think the courts are always fair. And sometimes the judges even. I mean, you've only got to look at family courts. I mean, goodness me, what a shambles that is. But what I'm saying is there are shocking incidents. I mean, as you rightly said, Eamonn, the sewage and everything, there was an infection on that ward. And I mean, were they trying to hide it? I don't know. I mean, was she used as a patsy, to sort of like cover up for other issues that they had of their incompetence, their lack of hygiene? Those things are still evident. And I do think also, I mean, there's a neonatologist, Dr. Michael Hall, who had a lot to think and say about this. He thought it was unsafe. And he wasn't even brought in by the defence team. So I'm not sure that Lucy Letby had the best defence counsel, actually, because a lot of people that could have given evidence were not called, which it sort of brings into question, did she have a fair trial? I don't know. The only person who knows is Lucy Letby, and I do feel so sad for the parents.
So do I.
I mean, I lost 4 children in pregnancy, and that was bad enough. But to have a baby born and the terrible tension and worry when they are in a neonatal ward, I do feel for them. But I still don't understand how you can convict someone without fingerprints and forensic evidence. I don't understand that, and I just think there is. I mean, David Davis wouldn't be calling for this. I mean, I met him. He's a pretty good guy, and he's got enough doubts about it, and he was on that programme the other night. And there's another doctor that said there wasn't enough evidence in the trial to say that there were significant quantities of insulin that had gone missing on the ward. So I don't know, that the whole thing has got a horrible smell around it, I think, whereas initially I just thought absolutely guilty. Go on, down you go, lady. Yeah. But I don't know. I just think the truth is the NHS needs a good kicking, quite honestly.
We've got to leave it there, Marilyn, but you raised so many valid points, and my opinion was totally the same as yours. She's as guilty as sin. Nothing will convince me otherwise. I watched the documentary and I came away just not sure. But there we go. Thank you very much. We'll talk again soon, Marilyn. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Okay.
Oh, it's one of those cases that will sort of define an era, won't it? So many people will always think of that name, Lucy Letby. I just think of the families and their wishes in all of this. Here's the forecast with Honor Krizik. Thankfully, no signs of Hurricane Milton here just yet.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease, and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, 3 weeks left to get your hands on £36,000 in tax-free cash.
Have a go.
And good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a scary budget coming around Halloween, and brewers have warned that hiking up taxes on alcohol could spell the end of an affordable pint. Now, I wasn't sure there was such a thing as an affordable pint, but anyway, that's the fear.
Yeah, well, experts have claimed that 1 in 10 pubs at risk of imminent closure, which could devastate communities around the world. I think there was a word missing there. 1 in 10 are at risk of imminent closure. OK, so we're asking today, should the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, raise alcohol duty? And joining us to debate this, the owner of the Sandown pub, Kate Stewart, and weight loss expert Steve Miller. Good morning, good seeing you. And Kate, first of all, Kate, what are you charging for a pint in your place?
We currently charge £5.50, and that's probably the bare minimum we can charge.
$5.60?
£5.50.
$5.50. Right. So the average across the whole country is $5.17. It's interesting that, you know, obviously there's a lot. I mean, that'll be £7 almost in London, £8 I've heard people paying for a pint as well. Why, Kate, are there so many differentials between what is being charged?
I think it all depends on where you are and what your outgoings are. I mean, we've got a massive building, so our own costs are really, really big. Electricity, mortgages, staff costs. We have to use casual staff because we're not open all the time. We are a match day pub. So I just think it depends on where your profits lie.
And what are your concerns about any possible rise in duty on alcohol? Because, you know, a lot of pubs we're hearing are already, you know, their margins, they're right on the edge.
Absolutely. So last year we had a 10% increase, the biggest in 50 years. We all cheered, oh, the Chancellor, wow, he's given us 6 months off because you just slammed us with a 10% increase the year before. People don't realise that 80% of the cost of spirits, when you're buying them, the consumer's buying them, is already duty. We've got the highest rate of duty in all G7 nations. The hospitality sector struggles massively. COVID, we got battered, we've come back, and it's never, ever be the same. There's 80 pubs closing every month in the UK, and we're pushing people to buy cheaper alcohol from supermarkets, even illicit alcohol. You know, you're going to see, if they put it up anymore, the black market, there's going to be a big, big push towards people buying black market alcohol, which then has a massive detrimental effect on public health.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying there, and I think often these number crunchers, these accountants or whatever who work out these figures don't think of the social impact of all of this. Now, there's Steve Miller. Steve, often we talk about weight loss as regards you and health matters and things like that. What's your interest in this?
Well, my interest in this is, first of all, I don't think we should increase it, but I don't think we should cut it either, because the evidence is strong that, in fact, I've got some figures for you here. Sheffield University researchers have found over a period of time that cuts to alcohol duty, it led to additional deaths around 2000. We had 61,386 additional hospitalisations. It cost the NHS 317 million quid more. But here's the one that really shocked me. By cutting duty, they found that there was 111 1,062 additional criminal offences. So I think we've got to be fair but firm. We also need to remember that last year it was reported that in the UK, the women in the UK are the biggest binge drinkers in the world. So I think it's about balance. It's not going overboard, but you know, it is about balance and common sense and making sure we look after the health of people as well. The other thing, however, what I would say, would I mind paying a bit more if it meant the pensioners get their winter fuel allowance? Yeah, I would. I'd certainly pay more.
Are you a drinker?
Not a problem.
Are you a drinker?
You are? I love a drink. Yes, absolutely. Who doesn't?
I don't. You'd be surprised to hear.
He was telling me yesterday that we were talking about Wagatha Christie and we were talking about hotel minibars. The only thing in a hotel minibar that...
don't tell him.
Oh, sorry. It's not the alcohol, which is where I would be going.
Kate, you heard the description there from Stephen. I just wondered from your point of view, I mean, do you see yourself contributing to the degeneration of the community around you? You see, I see it differently. I'm not a drinker, but I realise I've worked in many pubs throughout the years, and I think that they contribute a lot to society and bringing people together. And I think that loneliness and separation is an awful thing, and you don't get them whilst you have establishments like yours.
We are social institutions. That's what pubs are. And I think when everyone's talking about binge drinkers, that is a very small minority. We are trying to penalise the responsible people of this country. We are all
not a minority, Kate. It's not a minority.
Tell me this. How many direct deaths was there last year in the UK through alcohol?
Kate, when it comes to binge drinkers...
Answer the question, Steve. How many direct deaths was there last year in the UK? Answer the question.
I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question.
10,000.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to answer your question if you let me, right? Park it. So, it was reported last year that women in the UK are the biggest binge drinkers in the world. It's also reported clearly that this binge drinking stuff leads to additional deaths. It also leads to additional hospitalizations. It also means that we've had, over a period of time, this is fact, 111,000 additional criminal offences due to antisocial behaviour.
Okay, you said that, Steve.
I don't agree with cooking.
I've got to commit a criminal offence now because you're out of time.
Last orders.
Yeah, last orders. So thank you both very much indeed, and it's been very interesting hearing from both of you. We're going to take a short break there and back right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Tyne and Wear, the A194 is closed along Jarrow Road at South Shields because of flooding. In Leicestershire, the A5 is closed each way off the A47 in Hinckley after an accident. On the M6 in Warwickshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry, causing delays. The M4 in Newport's blocked eastbound by an accident at junction 24 at the Cauldre with queues towards there. On the M25 in Buckinghamshire, the inside lane's closed anti-clockwise just over a mile after junction 16 for the M40 where a vehicle caught fire. There are queues from junction 17 at Maple Cross. On the M4 in Berkshire, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed eastbound just before junction 10 at Wokingham after an accident causing queues. In West Sussex, there's a fallen tree on the A29 at Pulborough. On the M5 in Devon, a lane closed northbound for repairs between junctions 28 and 27 from Clumpton to Tiverton.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQs live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQs live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry, Tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Scarlett Maguire, Rennie Honderkamp here, to go through the stories in the papers today. And Scarlett, as a former Labour Party advisor, how thrilled are you about the way the Conservative leadership race is shaping up?
Well, I think it's quite interesting. I have to say that I will show my complete prejudice. I'm really pleased that Tom Tugendhat got thrown out.
Why?
That's interesting, because a lot of people would say he was the most lefty of them all.
He's a complete and utter hypocrite. This is a man who supported Rishi, then was offered a job by Liz Truss that we all knew she was going to be a total disaster and took it. He's a person who takes, the 20 pieces of silver. And do we know he served in the army? Every single interview.
Please,
I think
on.
he's
Starmer's
terrible.
father was a toolmaker.
I know, and have I stuck up about that? But I think it's quite. I think what's so interesting is, of course, that the MPs and ultimately the people who choose it are the members of the Tory party, and they will not agree with the MPs. And one of the things they're desperately trying to do is to keep Kemi Badenoch off the last two, because the last two go to the party, because she will get elected, and a lot of them think she'll be a disaster.
In the absence of Kemi Badenoch, who will get elected?
Probably the dreadful Jenrick.
Probably
Jenrick.
Okay.
Although he really, really did not help himself at the conference. Whereas James Cleverly, as you saw, sort of came back, had a really good conference, because he said, we need to be normal.
Well, the migration figures are not normal, Doctor, and they've caught your eye.
Yeah, they're really not normal. So we've had the fastest increase in 53 years, 1%. Our population has grown in the last year by 1%, and it's entirely due to net migration, because we've got a falling birth rate, we've got an increased death rate, so any increase in our population can't be from people that are having babies here or not dying. So it's entirely due to net migration, and we cannot cope. Our infrastructure cannot cope. We've seen that already. I see it every day in the NHS. Everything is just buckling at the knees. And if this continues, they're estimating in the next 2 years we're going to hit 70 million, and we're not going to get enough doctors trained, nurses trained, trains running, water pipes not leaking. None of that is going to happen. Houses built. We can't continue this. It has to stop.
Huge number of those coming in are working in the NHS, and they talk about how we're turning into Japan, in the sense that obviously more people are dying than are having babies amongst the natural population. We obviously do need a level of migration. I suppose the question is what that level is that's sustainable for housing, for schools and all the rest of it.
Perhaps we need to incentivise women to have babies, and lots of countries have done that over the years, Australia, France, where if you have more than 2 children, you get paid more money. Perhaps we need to, instead of opening up more nursery places for 9-month-olds, perhaps we need to encourage mums to stay at home with their babies, because that's the best place they can be.
Hold that thought, and we'll be back with lots more thoughts after this very short break.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or GBNews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tell us about this film, because it's obviously come from your own experiences.
We wanted to create something for the entertainment industry that wasn't just another kind of dull documentary. I mean, some of them are brilliant, they're very informative, but you kind of leave a bit bewildered and a little bit kind of flat. So we thought, I've got a passion for writing and you've obviously got an unbounded knowledge on the subject. Why don't we create a film with a kind of satirical look on eating disorders?
So this came it's been made 20 years after your own...
It is 20 years.
20 years,
practically to the day.
So Samantha, you suffered with OCD and an eating disorder as well?
Yes.
And that's when your mum became a counsellor, is that right?
A little bit later on, I think we spent a bit of time in the system and I realised that it wasn't working for us. So I took it on myself to learn as much as I could about the subject.
I call it a tragedy, probably the wrong word, but suffering.
No, it is a tragedy because mental ill health and eating disorders destroy the lives of not only the sufferers but their families as well.
But you've turned that into something so positive and so
It's
inspiring.
amazing, really, that 20 years ago our story was just beginning, and 20 years on, we've done what we've done. But I have to say that very little has changed in the system.
I've heard that.
And I think that's what we're passionate about.
Yeah, so...
That was why we wanted to... I mean, I work with families every day and I see the destruction that eating disorders and other mental illnesses not just bring to the sufferer, but the whole family.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really passions me, because obviously 20 years ago we were there. And I just feel that so much more needs to be done. And I think with eating disorders, there is still a lot of misunderstanding around the subject.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, while you've been away, these three in studio, Isabel, Rennie and Scarlett, have been arguing about the population of this country, and they all feel very, very strong about it. I mean, I'll put it to you. What are you kicking me for? What are you kicking me for? What are we not supposed to talk about?
I don't air my views in public.
Oh, well, I'll air them for you. Right.
Well, I think that's a bit out of order. If you want me to do, then I'll air your views in public, Eamonn, because I try to protect my impartiality. Just so you know.
Oh, all right.
Thank you.
What we're saying here is that I would say that the population explosion, or lack of it, is fueled by big business. Big business decides whether we want people in the country or not people in the country. And my question was going to be, Isabel, before you wet your pants, that what did we ever do before we worried about who was living in the country or not? Were we able to get by before, or have we always been a country that has to import people?
Well, we've been importing people for decades. I mean,
for
after
centuries.
Centuries. You're right, but I mean, after the war, masses of people came over from the Caribbean.
To fill the gap.
And what was the difference in those immigrants? They were the same culture as us. That was the difference. They were the same culture as us, and they absolutely integrated. We are not seeing integration. We have ghettos now.
That's not what they felt, right?
No, you're right.
I mean, the incredible racism.
Don't have to tell me about that.
That those people experienced. And actually, I think this goes back. I think that what we do need is we certainly need integration, but that's fine. I mean, we just that's what we need to do, right?
But saying that's fine, that's what we need to do, sounds also lovely, but it's not happening, Scarlett. We have ghettos. London is a collection of ghettos.
I thought
that is absolute rubbish.
It really is.
No. London is a collection of little communities. I mean, so most of them in some way are mixed. I mean, there's
really. Have you been to Whitechapel recently?
I thought the idea was to reduce the population around the world. And people don't seem to talk about that anymore.
Well, I don't agree we need to reduce the population around the world. So.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think that there's a limit to the sustainability of the planet? You just keep multiplying.
Dear God, would you like to live in Mumbai or somewhere? Would you?
But we've tipped it too far, Isabel. That now it's shrinking.
In this country, you mean?
All over the world.
But it's obviously not.
Those facts. Those are facts.
The global population is shrinking. We've just exceeded something like 9 trillion, haven't we?
Not in India, not in China.
I'm talking about the global population.
The rest of all of
we have an interconnected world, do we not? A lot of our produce that we use to clothe ourselves. So
all we'll have left at this rate is India and China.
But hold on, you've just said, I mean, and it's in the Times, that immigration is really high and it's too much. And now you say we want more people having babies.
Yes.
But
we need people in this country to have babies.
Why does it have to be like that? I really don't understand.
Because when about
whether
wrong
it's
people
your
and the
baby
right...
or whether you bring another baby in.
I suppose what your point is that it becomes like a country like Japan where you have an ageing population and not enough babies to pay for this ageing population. The working population become taxed more and increasing pressure. But the answer that we're obviously facing is immigration.
But when
you don't accept that as the answer.
When you bring in mainly low-paid workers, because that is what we're doing, because that's what big business want, Eamonn is right, and we are then subsidising them to actually survive on the low pay, and then other people who already are here in this country can't afford to work either.
Let's get a couple of other stories.
Can we go to the cup of tea in? Have we got time for a cup of tea?
Well, I thought we'd go to Dartmoor first of all and then finish with the cup of tea.
This is an incredible story. Is there's a landlord... So Dartmoor, and I used to live in Tavistock, and so you'd have to travel through Dartmoor from Plymouth, you know, whenever one wanted, and it was just lovely. And people go there and you go for walks. And they've now said that picnicking in Dartmoor is a crime, is trespass, because you're allowed to go on horseback on Dartmoor and you're allowed to walk, but as soon as you stop and sit down, it's trespass. And it's so this.
So you can eat on the go.
You can eat on the go.
Okay.
You can eat on the go,
No.
and it's just a real shame because Dartmoor is so lovely, and to start saying
Never been?
Never been. It's beautiful.
Doctor, so tell us about this business of cup of tea. Could be a boost for your health overall.
It's actually caffeine. So if you drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day, you have less inflammation, less heart disease. And we've known this for a long time, that drinking coffee is beneficial. Obviously, tea has caffeine in as well, but coffee has more. And then dark chocolate, because cocoa has caffeine in it. All of these things are good for limiting inflammation. And most of our diet in the Western world encourages inflammation.
Well, from what we get from America, foods and all that sort of thing. But it's fascinating you talk about this word inflammation and what effect it has on your health, because it's something I've only learnt about in the past couple of years since I've been confined to a wheelchair type thing. And what on earth is fueling your inflammation, and anything that encourages it should be banned?
Yeah, you know, I'm not a great, as you know, believer in banning things, but I think what we should be doing is put more effort behind educating people so that they can make the right choices. We know that nudge really works well. We know that supermarkets nudge people towards bad food, and it works. So let's nudge them towards good food. Let's educate our children. Let's teach people to cook.
Although caffeine and chocolate, if you have that before bed, you're not going to sleep a wink, are you? So then you're going to be more hungry the next day.
2 to 3 cups a day, mainly in the morning.
In the morning, there you go. But everyone eats chocolate in the morning, surely. That feels a bit weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always think these stories are a bit of nonsense when you get down to it.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. We'll say goodbye. We'll see you again next time. And we'll be back right after the weather update.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease, and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Leicestershire, the A5 is closed each way off the A47 in Hinckley after an accident. On the M6 in Warwickshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry, causing delays. On the M4 in Newport, the inside lane's closed eastbound after an accident at junction 24 at the Caldra, it's taking around half an hour in the queues. On the M25 in Buckinghamshire, the inside lane's closed anti-clockwise, just over a mile after junction 16 for the M40, where a vehicle caught fire. There are queues from junction 17 at Maple Cross. Train services are suspended between Broxbourne and Liverpool Street Station in London because of an incident. The M4 in Berkshire is blocked eastbound by an accident just before junction 10 at Wokingham, with queues from junction 11 at Reading. And on the M3 in Surrey, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed northbound after an accident at junction 3 at Bagshot, causing delays.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you stay, you will die. That is the message given to Florida residents as the Sunshine State braces for the worst hurricane in 100 years.
A mass evacuation is underway as the Category 5 hurricane is set to devastate the Tampa region with winds of up to 175 miles per hour.
This comes as flights between Britain and Florida are cancelled. The storm is expected to make landfall tonight.
Tom Tugendhat is out, 4 are whittled down to 3 in the Conservative leadership race, with another hopeful set to be eliminated later today.
The Chancellor is considering cuts to tax-free pension withdrawals after the government's winter fuel raid. But what does that mean for pensioners?
MI5 warns the UK is facing a growing threat from ISIS as it claims Russia's attempting to create mayhem on our streets.
Elsewhere, the NHS considered moving convicted child killer Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals, the Thirlwell inquiry has heard.
Brewers are warning that hiking alcohol taxes could spell the end of the affordable pint. So ahead of the autumn budget, we've been asking this morning whether or not the Chancellor should raise alcohol duty.
And in the sport this morning, Joe Root has just become England's leading Test match run scorer of all time. In tennis, Francis Tiafoe's issued an apology to everybody, you and me, for his Shanghai Masters meltdown, which we'll see later. And answer this: is this the scariest sport in the world? The clue's in the name: death diving.
Good morning. Feeling cold in the north, but still plenty of pleasant sunshine in the south, with plenty of clouds, some rain and some showers. So to find out where the sunshine is, stay tuned.
Very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. I think we should stress, because that cutaway before you see him landing in the water, it's called death diving, but all lived to tell the tale.
Oh, no, he didn't. No, no, that's not true. No. Yeah, death diving, you jump off the top of the cliff, you've got to land on your hands and your feet at the same time, 44 metres high.
You were very good. You were talking about how it reminded you of that magnificent 60s film, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Paul Newman, Robert Redford.
Standing there, do you remember they were trying to escape? They were being chased.
And they were going to jump into this ravine.
Yeah, and then Robert Redford is going, no, and he's going, what's the matter? No, and he goes, I can't swim.
Yeah.
And then Butch Cassidy or Paul Newman, if I'm right, it just starts laughing and goes, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The fall's going to kill you. And then they go, whoa, and then straight over the top. So that's exactly what it is. So I think maybe we should give it a go.
And the fall will kill us.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but it's death diving for you. No, it's not
Very
easy.
good. We'll see more of that and we'll hear more about that at 20 past. Thanks, Paul.
Right, we're turning our attention now to Florida, where over 1 million people have been ordered to evacuate the west coast ahead of Hurricane Milton that's set to make landfall tonight.
If you stay, you will die, was the message given by the Mayor of Tampa. Her name is Jane Castor.
Well, forecasters there are predicting that the Sunshine State will be hit with 15-foot floods and winds of up to 175 miles per hour. That's the worst in over 100 years.
The reality is stark. Even meteorologists finding it hard to come to terms with the scale of what's about to happen.
Just an incredible hurricane. It has dropped It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
So that hurricane said to be unsurvivable, the prisons even being evacuated. Well, earlier we spoke to one Florida resident, Aaron Pilkington, about how he was feeling.
We're out in front of Tropicana Field in the parking lot where the municipalities are now loading up a bunch of ambulances and medical supplies for the storm that is to come. So it looks like the preparation is on high alert, and we're ready for the storm to approach us as it's coming towards either St. Pete or Sarasota right now.
Aaron, just give us a sense of how worried you are for yourself, for your home, for your possessions, for your loved ones, because you'll have seen the devastation that Hurricane Helene caused just 2 weeks ago with 200 dead and debris scattered right across the areas affected. You must be very, very worried.
Yeah, we're definitely worried. I would fully suggest that if you are in the St. Pete all the way to Sarasota and even down to the Naples area, that you definitely evacuate. Obviously, don't do what we are doing here and stay. But if you are in this area, please try to get out of town, go up north to Georgia or North Carolina. It's going to be a devastating storm.
Well, let's speak to the weather journalist now, shall we? Nathan Rao, who joins us down the line. Good morning to you, Nathan. Can we first of all just talk about how these hurricanes actually affect us here in the UK a few days later? Not to the same extent, but anyone who's thinking, why are we even concerned about this? It does have implications for us.
It could do. I mean, in terms of how the hurricanes affect the UK, the UK cannot get hurricanes. They are tropical features. We sometimes get the remains of hurricanes. In fact, today we've got the remains of Hurricane Kirk going just to the south of the UK over France. They're going to take the brunt of it, but we might get a bit of a pull down from the north and some cooler temperatures and some wet and windy weather to the south. Now, with Hurricane Milton, that is going to move across the peninsula of Florida, the Florida Peninsula, as a fully maintained hurricane. That is what people are very, very worried about in this area. In fact, I've been doing this a very, very long time now, and I have never seen meteorologists look as worried as I have done this morning going through some of the reports. Now, whether that comes to the UK or some of the remnants of it come to the UK, it may well do. If it moves northeastwards into the North Atlantic and up into the temperate regions where we are, we could get some knock-on effects of that a week, 10 days down the line. But really, in the immediate future, it is Florida, mainly Tampa Bay, which is seeing the biggest effect of this. It's been, as you described, Eamonn, being called as a once-in-a-lifetime event. The biggest storm in a century, the biggest storm in history. And I have to say, I think these labels are warranted. This is going to cause some serious damage. It is an absolute monster with gusts of 200 miles per hour. To put it into context, if we compare that to the Great Storm of 1987 in the UK, that had gusts of 137 miles per hour and the damage that caused, we're looking at gusts of 200 miles per hour. And as I said, it's going to move across the peninsula of Florida as a fully formed hurricane. Usually they die as they go over land or over cooler seawaters. This is not. It's going to stay as a category. It's at the moment a category 5 hurricane. It's going to stay as a hurricane as it plows across that peninsula. Very worrying.
Very worrying. You sound as if you're already holed up in the bathroom with that echo going on around there.
Oh dear.
But so then you would totally agree with the mayoral advice there, get out or die?
I would, yes. I think the Mayor of Tampa, as you mentioned, has said to leave the area. Meteorologists are saying, leave the area now. Don't wait for it to come. Leave the area now. There's a 12-foot storm surge on the way. That's going to hit the Bay of Tampa. And the flooding, in fact, is more dangerous than the winds sometimes. With Helene, the main death toll and the cost is due to the flooding. So the storm surge is a serious concern. Really, yes, I would agree. This is a very, very, very serious event, one that I haven't seen in this magnitude as long as I've been covering weather. I've seen a few of them. This is one of them that I'm really watching closely. Yeah, not a good place to be at the moment.
Me seeing that meteorologist move to tears as he looked at the chart and realising what it was going to do to Florida really brought this story home for me. Why is this happening?
Well, this is it is hurricane season in the US. Hurricane season lasts from July to November. What has been unusual is this last couple of weeks we've had 3 hurricanes form in the Atlantic in October, which is unheard of. That was Leslie, Milton and Kirk. As I mentioned, the remains of Kirk is going to give us a little bit of an impact today. 3 hurricanes forming at the same time is unheard of. Now, this is when we stray into the issue of why is this happening. The reason why Hurricane Milton is so strong is it's traveling over the Bay, the Gulf of Mexico, where the ocean waters are unusually high. If you follow my thread here, we're talking about high temperatures, ocean waters unusually high, unusual events in the Atlantic. This may, and there is a report out actually from an organisation called World Weather Attribution that does say this could have a significant link to the increasing temperature of the globe, i.e. global warming, as did Helene. So I think, although I'm not a great fan usually of linking individual weather events to climate change, I think we are now straying into the territory of this is the strength of this storm, the rate at which it's intensified, as your meteorologist said, 50 millibars in 10 hours. What we call a weather bomb in the UK is 24 millibars in 24 hours. We're really looking at something unusual going on. These things are powered by heat, by increased temperatures, by warm, moist sea waters. This could well start to point the gaze back onto the issue of climate change.
And to the extent, Nathan, that there is talk about reclassifying the scale that they're measured on, this one being 5, and they're thinking of maybe going 6 or 7.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. The highest category of hurricane is category 5. That's more than 158 miles per hour. We are seeing them now at more than 158 miles per hour. This one last night was 168 in terms of its vortex speed. That's a spinning speed. gust speeds are higher. So 168 is beyond the Category 5 measuring point. So it would be absolutely extraordinary if we saw them increase the scale to a Category 6. I don't know whether they would do that, but certainly something we need to look at if that happens.
Nathan, appreciate your contribution and your analysis. Thank you. We'll say goodbye to you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, let's turn our attention to politics. James Cleverly has surged into pole position in the Tory leadership race. Tom Tugendhat was the latest to be eliminated.
The former Home Secretary, that's Cleverly there, took 39 of the 120 votes. Next, Robert Jenrick, 31, and Kemi Badenoch on 30.
Meanwhile, it's being reported that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, could make cuts to tax-free pension withdrawals, with critics claiming that the move would signal another attack on pensioners following on from the winter fuel raid.
Let's now go to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, with her analysis of all of this. Catherine.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. So it's a big day in the Tory leadership contest. It's been going on for, feels like forever, and it's not going to end till members pick the next leader on November the 2nd. But what happens today is critical because MPs will choose which two out of James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch go to the members. Now, James Cleverly yesterday surged into the lead, so it looks pretty much certain that he will be one of the two. What we don't know is who the other one will be. Now, Robert Jenrick, his team were telling me a month ago that they had the numbers to get to the final two. He's still ahead of Kemi Badenoch, but only by one, and he's gone back actually by 2 votes. So we really don't know. Kemi Badenoch, her team say, look, she's moving ahead. She's currently on 30, but she's gone up by 2. Nobody knows what's going to happen, and it's possible there'll be all sorts of jiggery-pokery with MPs trying to engineer that a particular person, perhaps Kemi Badenoch, may not make it into the final 2 because MPs will feel that if she gets there, members would put her in. So it'll be a very interesting afternoon indeed.
And what about these Rachel Reeves considerations when it comes to pensioners?
Yes, well, more bad news for pensioners if it happens. But of course, Rachel Reeves has been looking at all sorts of ways to plug this £22 billion black hole, and a lot of them seem to be closed off to her. Looks like they are talking about... looks like they're talking about... Oh, sorry, I've lost my thread. I can hear you in my ear. Looks like they're talking about cutting the amount that you can earn to 100,000 that you can take out of your pension tax-free from 268,000 as it is currently. They reckon that would raise about £2 billion if they go ahead with it. But although this has been recommended by people like the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the Fabian Society, a lot of pensioners and people coming up to pension age will have planned on being able to take that 25% amount tax-free. So it may be subject to legal challenge. But Rachel Reeves is struggling, frankly, to find places to get money from, because it looks like she's may not go ahead with the non-dom crackdown because it may not raise any money. There's obviously the rebellion over the winter fuel payments, and so the list goes on. So it's really very, very difficult indeed.
Bearing with and battling through those sound issues as well. Appreciate it.
Let's have a look now at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Wednesday morning. The NHS considered moving Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals. The thorough inquiry is heard. The NHS trust in charge of the Countess of Chester Hospital in Crewe considered the move despite doctors raising concerns about a possible connection between Letby and an increase in the number of baby deaths.
The King will not be attending next month's COP29 conference in Azerbaijan. It's being reported it comes after a planned visit to New Zealand has also been cancelled on doctors' advice, and adjustments made to his tour of Australia and Samoa to allow time for rest.
The M42 has been ranked England's worst motorway thanks to the number of potholes as well as delays. It was ranked last in a survey of more than 9,000 road users. It's 40 miles long and it connects Birmingham to areas including Nottingham, Solihull, Tamworth and Redditch.
An image of a swarm of toad tadpoles has won this year's Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. It was captured by the conservation photojournalist Shane Gross whilst he was out snorkelling. But he actually beat a record-breaking 60,000 entries, some of which you're seeing now. If you're listening on the radio, definitely worth checking those out. They're going to be on display at the Natural History Museum, and I'd suggest that also well worth a visit.
Lovely. Sounds strange, a swarm of tadpoles.
I know, it doesn't
swarm
sound
of
very
bees,
inviting.
Swarm of wasps.
A swarm of tadpoles. And would you want to snorkel in it? Anything for your art.
Let's have a look at the weather.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
3 weeks left to grab your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far in the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, £3,000 per month for a whole year, tax-free, could be yours, but you just have to make sure you enter the competition. Here's how.
There's just 3 weeks left to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil. Morning, Ben. And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So
What's this one?
That's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald, and it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
See if
colour.
we get a close-up.
So yeah, so pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, The reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The two diamonds on the side are D-colour flawless diamonds, just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world, really. Yeah. 85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grams worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give that back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got
Neil.
a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be
Is it big
amazing.
enough?
So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a fancy, natural fancy vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So,
it fits
depends
like
where
a
you're
glove.
buying it from.
It fits like a glove, Neil.
Oh.
Maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be mine.
Definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're going to talk about MI5's Director General now, Ken McCallum, who spoke out yesterday and he warned Russia has attempted to cause mayhem on the streets of Britain.
Yes, this comes as he claimed Britain's facing a growing threat from ISIS and Al-Qaeda, as well as from Russia. And he talked, excuse me, about the number of children being investigated for terrorism rising dramatically.
We're also seeing far too many cases of very young people being drawn into poisonous online extremism. Sadly, 13% of all those being investigated by MI5 for involvement in UK terrorism are under 18. That's a threefold increase in the last 3 years.
The views now of former Divisional Commander in the Metropolitan Police, Di Davis. Di, good morning to you. Why do you think Ken McCallum was so public yesterday?
Well, a very good morning. Well, it's his yearly speech that he gives, and quite rightly, he's indicating the serious threat that's posed to us from a variety of different nations, and indeed those who are homegrown. Frightening that 13% of their activity is now based on children, but it doesn't surprise me. When you think how many people have come to this country from the Middle East and other countries, many of them whose parents and others may have Islamic sympathies, it doesn't surprise me at all. We are continuously letting people into this country and we don't know anything about them. And then we're surprised when some of their offspring and indeed youngsters in this country, both from the Islamic side and indeed from the so-called right wing, are actually being targeted. They're young, they're impressionable, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
This rise in state-sponsored threats, up by almost 50%, is really quite stark, isn't it?
It is stark, but it's nothing new. I remember back in the 70s as a young constable guarding the Russian embassy, and they were active then, as were the Czechoslovakians, who were then part of the Iron Curtain. There's nothing new, and again in the 70s, I remember when the Shah was disposed, a lot of Iranians came to this country. And again, the new regime there do target some of their own citizens in one shape or another. And of course, we've got China and their insidious attempt to infiltrate a variety of different aspects in this country. But I do think the intelligence services, MI5, MI6 and GCHQ are far better equipped now than they've ever been. And I think there's a realization that this threat is real, it's happening, and we should be doing all we can. I just hope those currently in government recognise this and take the appropriate action.
But would they recognise the form of the infiltration or the attacks? You say there's nothing new with the threats, but would there must be something new in the way that they would actually carry them out?
Well, you're quite right, because technology has moved on so much in half a century. And it's again, they're targeting universities, they're targeting industry. So there's a huge range, new as it was in my day, certainly as a young constable. That's the areas where technically they are more able and can disrupt us in so many different ways. But it is quite frightening, but I think it's good that we're alert. And I think there's new legislation coming out, which hopefully will enhance all our infrastructure. And that's what they're trying to attack, as far as I can see.
What about the young people being targeted in all of this? I'm thinking yesterday, the guy who was in court having escaped from Wandsworth Prison and having been a member of the Signal Corps as well. He was certainly recruited by the time he was 17.
Well, I say again, quite often it is the youngsters who are being targeted, left, right, and Islamic-wise. They are the people who are being influenced by the media, not your kind of media, but the internal media that these people actually put out. They're influenced, and there's a huge range of lies and misinformation being put out. And so it's not surprising that they're going to be younger and younger, as they are in the drugs trade. That's the frightening thing, that we live in this country.
OK,
and
Di,
we have
thanks
to
very
tolerate
much.
this kind of thing.
Di Davies there, former head of Royal Protection at Scotland Yard. Thanks very much indeed.
And we've got Paul Coit with the sport, including death diving, coming up next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A87 is closed each way between Glenmoriston and Bunloyne after an accident. On the A1M in West Yorkshire, there are two lanes closed northbound at junction 41 for the M62 after an accident. In Leicestershire, the A5 is closed off the A47 at Hinckley after an accident. On the M6 in Warwickshire, the inside lane's closed southbound where a lorry shed its load from junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry. On the M4 in Newport, the inside lane's closed eastbound at junction 24 for the Cauldre after an accident. It's taking around an hour in queues from junction 29 for the A48M. Long delays on the A48 as you divert. On the M4 in Berkshire, there are two lanes closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 11 and 10 from Reading to Wokingham, with queues from junction 12. And on the M25 in Buckinghamshire, the inside lane's closed anti-clockwise just over a mile after junction 16 for the M40, where a vehicle caught fire causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Gosh, a busy few days of sport coming your way. Paul, now to go through that and tell us what's happening. Football features a lot.
It does, but firstly, Joe Root has broken a record this morning, overtaking Sir Alistair Cook as England's highest test run scorer of all time. They're playing in Pakistan at the moment. He scored his 12,472nd run. Just a little bit earlier today. He's on 72 not out, which puts him fifth. So he's the greatest run scorer in Test history for England, and now the fifth on the all-time list. The man who's at the top is Sachin Tendulkar of India, which is 15,921 runs. So give him a few years, and I think probably Joe Root will reach that as well. Magnificent.
Yeah, you were talking about the temperatures that they're playing in over there, 38, 40 degrees, to be record-breaking in those sorts of temperatures only adds to the achievement.
Oh, he's an incredible player.
Yeah.
He is an incredible player. And you know what? He's playing probably the best cricket he's been playing in a long time as well, so there's no reason why he won't get up to the 15,000. It's going to take probably a couple of years, but the way he's going, I think it's going to happen.
Footballer Dominic Solanke, good news for him.
Well, yeah, because he plays for Spurs, striker for Spurs, and he's been 7 years away. So he last played for England 7 years ago. He was in the under-21 squad and did very well there, and then he came on for 15 minutes against Brazil, and then 7 years away, and now he's been brought back in again, so which is really good for him. And, you know, it's always worth sticking around. I mentioned earlier Ian Callaghan, who used to play for Liverpool. He's the longest gap ever, which was 11 years. Larry Lloyd, you remember Larry Lloyd?
Yes, played for Liverpool as well.
Yes, he did.
Nottingham Forest.
That's right, because he made his first appearance when he played for Liverpool. Last one when he was at Forest, between 7 years. Frank Lampard's dad, Frank Lampard.
Yeah.
He was 7 years as well between us. So was Ian Walker.
He played
That's
for
right,
West Ham,
absolutely, yeah, Frank Lampard Senior. So good news for Dominic Solanke.
But I mean, Callaghan as well at Liverpool. I wonder what determines why it takes 11 years for you to be picked and then back again.
Well, I'm thinking. I mean,
who makes the selection?
Well, off the top of my head, if we think he was in the squad for the '66 World Cup.
Yes.
Now, I don't think he actually played in that. But then there was
11 years later, you expect him to be retired.
You'd kind of think so. He did play forever. He did play into his 40s. And then Liverpool had that incredible success, if you look around the mid-70s. And then that's when he came back into the fold again, when England weren't doing so well.
But he would be what age by then?
63. It was, he would have been in his... I think he was 41. I think he was about 40. He must have been.
Listen, you say 63. Look at Scotland. Look at the goalkeeping scenario.
Oh, Craig Gordon.
There. Yeah. Craig Gordon's how old?
He's 41.
Right.
He looked like his career was finished. By the way, our friend Big Pat Jennings played in the World Cup when he was 41 for Northern Ireland. Yeah. So Craig Gordon's 41. It looked like he would be out because he didn't play in the Euros earlier on in the year, and then it seems that Angus Gunn, the number one, has been out because he's injured, and then so he's been brought back in. So it's amazing. So he's got 75 caps, 41 years old, could be back in. There's hope for all of us.
There is.
There's hope for all of us. So Belarus, by the way, Northern Ireland, Croatia, Scotland, Iceland, Wales, and England will be playing Greece at Wembley tomorrow night. So there's that one.
Okay.
Do you want to see Francis Tiafoe? Francis Tiafoe, tennis player.
The expletives.
He had a bit of a meltdown.
Oh, dear.
He did have a meltdown. I counted 13 F-bombs throughout this. So what I've had to do... It's like a lunch with Eamonn. It was like that. It was, honestly, it was what it was like. So anyway, so look, what happened is that he was serving 5-5 in the final set. A lot of tension. And then the umpire says he overstepped the 25 seconds, because usually 25 seconds in between points. Threw the ball up, didn't serve, and he said, right, OK, you've lost your first service. So Tiafoe was really upset about that. Then he lost the game, and then as he walked off court, he was not best pleased.
All right, let's have a look.
There we go. I know it's a bit of a bizarre one. there's not a lot really you can hear for obvious reasons. But he was extremely unhappy. But he has issued an apology. I apologise the way I acted tonight. It's not who I am. It's not how I ever want to be. And goes on, I let my frustration get the better of me, blah, 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 blah. I apologise to everybody, the tournament, the fans, the umpire. I'll be better for y'all.
You've never been that angry about anything in your entire life, have you?
I haven't, no, I haven't. Although I was when I was dropped from the last hour.
Oh, really?
I did, yeah,
Were you?
I
You
did.
were effing and
I
blinding.
was effing and jeffing everywhere, quite frankly. Let's have a look.
So were we, to be fair.
So who's going to be happy today on their birthday?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, so do you want to do a couple of birthdays before we do the diving? Right, OK, here we go. First one, I don't know where, I think Eamonn will recognise. I'm not so sure about Izzy. Have a look at the first one. It's a legendary goalkeeper for Sunderland, that's it. So let's have a look at Big Jim Montgomery. Played for Sunderland in the 1973. There we are. Do you remember the double
Which
save?
one is he?
He's the one in the green on the floor.
Oh, right, OK.
He's just made the greatest cup final double save that's ever been
We take the strap off there.
So this was 73, if it helps. Double save from Trevor Cherry and Peter
against
Lorimer.
Leeds. Peter Lorimer, remember that? Yeah, and Trevor Cherry was the
Cherry was the other one.
Yeah. No, it was amazing, absolutely incredible.
So how old is Jim today?
I would say Jim is at least 75.
75. Izzy is doing the math.
I'm not. I'm just going to say 85.
81 is the answer. OK, another one a little bit more famous. Little bit, sorry, Jim, but anyway, everybody knows him. There he is, Steve Ovett.
What an athlete.
What an athlete. One of our great middle distance runners, 800-metre champion in the Olympics in 1980. Broke the world record, goodness knows how many times. Him and Seb Coe. So how old do you reckon Steve Ovett is today?
66.
Oh, look, look away from the screen. Don't look at the screen. Don't look at the screen.
That was a good guess.
I was going to say 70.
It's 69,
So we're
actually.
exactly
It said 69.
split down the
It's actually
middle
69.
there.
That's 69. Right, finally, we've got time for the diving.
Go on, then.
Death diving.
As it's you.
Francis Com Girardot, new world death diving record. Jumps off the cliff. You've got to land on your hands. You've got to land on your feet. At the same time, it's just terrifying.
Okay.
Have a look at this. Here he goes. I mean, how crazy you
Oh, the nerves before you jump.
44 metres up. Oh, my goodness.
Sugar muffins.
Look at that.
But you just think it's not even the distance or whatever, it's all those rocks
Yeah.
jutting out.
Yeah,
I know.
I think
It's
that's actually
everything.
the more scary bit, is you can probably guarantee that you can land safely if the water's deep enough, but just miscalculate that, hit the rocks, you're going to splat like a
whatever
rotten
you splat
tomato on the floor.
I know, but that's it. But who invented the fact that you land on your hands and your feet? Because if you get your feet and your hands up, then it's going to be the worst belly flop the world has ever seen. And can you imagine how red your tummy's going to be when you land there?
Not to mention your reproductives.
Yes.
Not to put too fine
I wasn't
a
going
point
to
on
mention
it.
the reproductives.
But
my
you reckon
goodness.
this is just to distinguish them from normal diving? It's not about breaking the fall or anything.
You know what?
We don't know what the science is.
I have absolutely no idea. All I
Okay,
know
fair
is
enough.
it's in Spain, it's crazy, and they hit the water at 106 kilometres an hour, and I don't really fancy that one very much.
OK, thank you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for this morning. I particularly enjoyed you in the last hour. I thought
Me
you were
too.
superb.
Award-winning.
Yeah. Rennie Honderkamp and Scarlett Maguire, they've got the newspapers right after this. Don't go away.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You must be so proud of your daughter being so just amazingly brave and a model for other people who face illness.
I think we're proud of her all day, every day, and always have been. Liz has always given her all to anything she put her mind to, whether that was studying for her GCSE exams at school or whether it's been her photography and battling cancer. Liz never does anything by half, and we are so incredibly proud of her each and every day.
And Liz, I noticed a wonderful line from you saying that when you've got cancer, A-levels don't matter so much. That seems to me to be a very reasonable view to take and has given you then the chance to do these other amazing things that you will be doing more of in future with the London Ambulance Service. And I imagine many people will want to help you with your bucket list because they've now seen you and seen how brave you are.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've already been overwhelmed by the responses and the support by so many people. I think when my mum originally posted the list, it received like 4,000 replies. It was insane, and still there's more. So from the bottom of our hearts, and especially mine, we just want to say thank you, because there's nothing that forces anyone to get in touch and say, hey, I have something you can do, pop over and do this or that, or it's just out of the generosity of their hearts. So thank you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And we've got Renee and Scarlett. They've got the stories making the news in the papers today. Good morning again to both of you. And Taylor Swift is making the news front page of The Sun today.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. Not that I'm normally interested in celebrities, as you know, but I think what's interesting is that Taylor Swift and her mum, who was very active in this, wanted her to have blue light escorts through town when she was doing the concerts here. And the Met said no, because it was too expensive. It would be a big burden on the taxpayer. So the Home Secretary... Could she not have paid for it? Well, that's interesting. Yeah, could she not have paid for it? It wasn't suggested. So Yvette Cooper got involved and Sadiq Khan, and they ended up giving her her blue light. And I just think it shows many things. I think it shows that Labour are absolutely enthralled to celebrity. I think it puts another question over the free tickets that they then got for Taylor Swift concerts. And I think it just shows more and more cronyism and sleaze at the heart of the party that said there would be no cronyism and sleaze.
The reason I said could she not have paid for it is that football clubs, when they use a certain amount of police officers, they have the option of actually funding or paying for extra
I think
stuff
they should.
there as well. So what do you think, Scarlett?
Yeah, I think she should have paid. I think you know, I mean, the whole blue light thing is really difficult, isn't it, of who gets it and who doesn't, and whether you're...
Who does qualify technically?
Well, all the royals. I mean, if you're around Whitehall, you're forever seeing them being sort of... The whole traffic in Trafalgar Square
in this,
stops.
you're blaming Taylor Swift, not Sadiq Khan or whoever okayed it, Yvette Cooper.
I think if the problem was money, which is what it seems to be, then they should have just said you pay for it. I think that's
should you be able to pay and buy that kind of red carpet?
Khan will come forward and say, well, think of what this is doing to our economy and what's going on in London and whatever. But the truth is, Taylor Swift needs London as much as London needs Taylor Swift.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And do you know what? She would still have come. She would still have carried on and done her concerts. I think it's more interesting that the politicians got involved at the end of the day. I don't think they should have done. I think they should have left it to the Met. And if they'd have left it to the Met said no.
OK. Scarlett Maguire, let's look at the story inside the Times. And this is about Angela Rayner rolling out the red carpet for a new film studio. And this is something we do very well in this country.
This is a lovely story, actually, because I have a slight conflict of interest because I slightly know the guy who is new film studio. So it's in Buckinghamshire. It's near Marlow. It's going to be in an old quarry, and so although it's technically green belt, it's what I think Keir Starmer would call grey belt because there's nothing pretty about it. And it's going to bring masses of jobs. And what the film industry says is we need more because of all the streaming. So I think this is a story. And actually it's what to be fair, Rishi Sunak wanted to do is that actually we cannot go on having the planning laws stopping development. And as long as it's sensible, I think it's a really good idea. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I can't see a problem with that. Any objections on the
No, I think
panel?
it's a good idea.
Yeah. Good jobs and sort of uncontroversial, that one. What about the death risk rise after A&E waits for hip fractures, Renee?
So I picked up on this because I think it's really interesting that people don't realise how serious a hip fracture is. They think somebody falls over, breaks their hip, it gets fixed like an arm. It really isn't. So if you break a hip, there's a third of people who break a hip will die within a year.
Oh, gosh.
A third will never live independently again. That's how staggering it is. And I know...
Why should that be? Is this because of complications? Or?
So complications is part of it. I mean, I actually was very scarred by an elderly patient who I saw with a fractured hip who, due to hospital errors, didn't get to surgery for 4 days and then died of pneumonia. And for me, that was a wake-up call where I really started looking into this. And this story says that if an elderly person with a broken hip stays in A&E for more than 4 hours, their chance of death is rapidly increased. And it's a linear relationship. So there's a lot to be said for obviously treating them quickly, but I think there's also a lot to be said for trying to prevent them. And that's why we have falls clinics, which I think in COVID have kind of gone a bit by the by, and we need to think about our elderly more. But we need to think about ourselves. So women, 72% of the fractures in this study were women, and a third of these people died.
Is that a link to menopause?
It's a link to menopause. Osteoporosis. So we need to think about weight-bearing exercise. Exercise alone isn't enough. We need to do weight-bearing exercise as women. We need to eat a really healthy diet with lots of calcium and vitamin D, and we need to think about HRT, which really does keep your bones protected after menopause.
What is the advice if you've strained your knee or hurt your knee in some way and you're hobbling across the studio floor? Scarlett.
Like me.
I'm just worried about you fading away and dying before we finish the paper review.
Good physio.
I am going to find out what's wrong with it. But actually, my brother had a motorbike accident and broke his hip, and I mean that was awful, and they fixed it and everything. But then he did get a blood clot and had to be rushed to hospital. Yeah. And I don't know, is he elderly? Yes, he's over 60, but actually, but very active. In fact, I mean, one of the problems was that he hobbled around instead of using crutches.
And does the clot then emanate or form in the area that the break took place, or can the clot
be
anywhere? In your brain or...
Well, no, it can be anywhere in your deep vein system, but the danger of that, of course, is it moving to your lungs and you get a pulmonary embolism, which is catastrophic.
Awful, not worth thinking about. Your health is your wealth.
But I do think after an operation like that, I mean, as my brother didn't do, that if anything starts going wrong, you do need to phone immediately.
Yeah. And when you talk about fall clinics, is that because there's a good way to fall and a bad way to fall? The reason I ask, my mum's in her 70s, fit as a fiddle, but they live on a hill and they've got loads of steps in the garden. She's fallen twice in the last month, and I keep saying to you, it's going to be a hip, and that's
so
that's
a warning. So yes, the falls clinic
handrails.
So falls clinics assess your gait and they see if there's anything about you that is putting you more at risk. They come and visit your home and give you, handrails upstairs, things like that. Believe it or not, for the really elderly people who are really likely to fall and break their hips, they have special padded underwear with pads across the hips to protect the hips.
Okay. Top tip.
Do you know something I can't stand? Puff pastry.
I'm surprised. It's very crumbly.
I love
What is the point?
So do I.
What's the point? It's just lovely to eat.
It's puffy.
It's puffy.
It's flaky.
That's the whole point of it. It's not sort of boring. It's just puffy.
Have it on a chicken
What are
pie.
you ooming about here?
What?
You protest every time I have puff pastry here.
No, because I don't like the mess it makes on the table. But at a table with a knife and fork.
You like eating it.
At a table with a knife and fork, it's delicious with a pie.
So a sausage roll's puff pastry,
sausage
right?
rolls,
Gorgeous.
puff pastry. There you go. You love a sausage roll.
Yes, I like the sausage roll. I don't
That's
care.
puff pastry.
No, but the puff pastries, it's not what you lick your lips say. There's some puff pastry.
But you're not
coming my
ordering
way.
just a sausage.
Yes, but you'd rather have it puffed than ordinary. And what the story is about is that the wonderful Prue Leith, major cook, never makes puff pastry. She always buys it, which makes us all feel better because I always buy mine as well.
My life's too short.
Absolutely.
You can buy it. You can buy it.
Yeah.
Oh, you can buy it in rolls. You can buy it, in a good supermarket.
What I do agree, she loves shop custard. I mean, tinned custard. Then
we had it last
which
night.
Which is really nice.
Well, it's quite nice, but there's probably other makes. But among the other makes, Birds. So if you make it yourself, then you have wonderful skin.
To my childhood, my mum would make it from the powder.
Absolutely.
But actually, last night for dinner, we had a homemade... I didn't make it, by the way. Thank you to my friend Deborah. She makes them from the apples on my tree in my garden. We had a homemade crumble with Madagascar custard. Marks and Spencer's other brands are available.
With vanilla pods in it.
Yeah.
Vanilla all the business.
But-
making me hungry.
Just delicious.
I've got to ask you, what did they make school custard out of? Because
That was grim.
school custard is enough to have put everybody off
I like
custard
school custard.
for the rest of their lives.
At my school, we had to eat it, and I used to write letters for my mum and forge her signature to say that I was allergic to custard.
Really? It wasn't bad in my day.
Well, actually, when I went to a private school, it was awful, and you had to eat everything. And I have never eaten boiled carrots since. And then I went to a state school, and you didn't have to, and the food was delicious, actually. And I really liked the custard. And I loved the puddings.
That's another reason why you're in favour of ending private schools. The custard was better in the state sector.
Custard was better, and you didn't have to finish everything if you didn't like it.
Well, here's something that I'm in favour of. Rennie,
yes.
Vandals replanting a flower display. Why did they do that?
Because their parents got involved. So these young teenage yobs destroyed a lovely flower display in the town centre, and there was no repercussion. The parents got involved and made them go and replant the entire planter.
Right.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
They will never do it
These
again.
Are teenagers?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's
parenting.
the best way to talk about justice is when people have to go and wash the graffiti off themselves. Community service. We talk about the litter problem in this country.
Yeah.
Not only does it instill a sense of pride in where you live, but it makes you... It's so easy to destroy things right across the board, whether it's your weight,
But
your marriage,
also
whatever it is.
parental control here,
community.
parental authority.
It's hard to make
we talk about why do children do what they do, and we say, what are the parents doing in all of this? Well, here the parents are showing the right example.
Yeah, absolutely. But actually, in the riots, there was... I think it was... Anyway, it was a young... I think it was an 11-year-old boy, and his father went absolutely ballistic.
Yeah.
And actually, it did him far more good.
Marched him to the police station.
Yes. And because of that, they let him go. But actually, that will have really, really done the right thing.
Now, if Catherine Forster's
I just
listening...
want to tell
go on.
the petrol station nearby us in Belfast was bombed and burnt down. And me and my brother, everybody was there looting it. It was being looted right, left and centre. And those were the days when petrol stations just sold fan belts and spark plugs. But me and my brother went round and we got all this stuff. It was covered with smoke and everything and brought it round home. My father said, what is that? And we said, this is all from the petrol station round the corner, whatever. He made us pick it all up and go back and put it back in the burnt ruins off the shop.
Good for him. Good for him.
And you've never done it again.
Thankfully.
And cars don't have fan belts anymore.
Scott Maguire, Renee Hunderkamp, that was a less fireworky pay-per-view, but we appreciate you all morning. Thank you both very much indeed. For now, though, here's the weather with Honor Krizik.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day, sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease, and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Leicestershire, the A5 is closed in both directions south of the A47 at Hinckley, where a lorry shed its load after hitting a bridge. On the M6 in Warwickshire, the inside lane's closed southbound, where a lorry shed its load between junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry, causing delays. Now on the M4 in Newport, the inside lane's closed eastbound at junction 24 for the Cauldre after an accident. It's been taking an hour in queues from junction 29 for the A48M. Delays still on the A48 through Newport as you divert. On the M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 11 and 10 from Reading to Wokingham, with queues towards there from junction 12. And on the M25 in Buckinghamshire, the inside lane's closed anti-clockwise just after junction 16 for the M40, where a vehicle caught fire, causing 10 miles of queues from junction 18 at Chorley Wood. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's just...
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. If you stay, you'll die. That's the message being given to Florida residents as the Sunshine State is bracing for the worst hurricane in 100 years.
Mass evacuation is underway as the Category 5 hurricane is set to devastate the Tampa region, with winds reaching 175 miles per hour.
This comes as flights between the UK and Florida are cancelled, with the storm expected to make landfall this evening.
Tom Tugendhat is out for or whittled down to 3 in the Conservative leadership race, with another hopeful set to be eliminated later today. We have got one of those hopefuls very, very shortly here on the programme.
The Chancellor is considering cuts to the tax-free pension withdrawals after the government's winter fuel raid. We're asking what this means for pensioners.
MI5 warns Britain is facing a growing threat from ISIS as it claims Russia is attempting to create mayhem.
Elsewhere, the NHS considered moving convicted child killer Lucy Letby to one of the UK's largest children's hospitals. The Thirlwall inquiry has heard.
Good morning. Feeling cold in the north, but still plenty of pleasant sunshine in the south, with plenty of clouds, some rain and some showers. So to find out where the sunshine is, stay tuned.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Wednesday morning. Hope your day is going well. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, over 1 million people have been ordered to evacuate Florida's west coast counties ahead of Hurricane Milton that's set to make landfall tonight.
Absolutely scary situation. This put no better than this way. If you stay, you will die. The mayor of Tampa, Jane Castor, has spelt out.
Even the prisons in the region are being evacuated, and forecasters are predicting that there will be 15-foot flood surges and winds of up to 170 miles per hour. That's the worst in 100 years.
So all of that sounds very stark, with even meteorologists finding it hard to come to terms with the scale.
Just an incredible, incredible, incredible hurricane. It has dropped... It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just horrific.
Aaron Pilkington lives in Florida. Here's how he's preparing.
Right now, we're out in front of Tropicana Field in the parking lot where the municipalities are now loading up a bunch of ambulances and medical supplies for the storm that is to come. So it looks like the preparation is on high alert, and we're ready for the storm to approach us as it's coming towards either St. Pete or Sarasota right now.
Aaron, just give us a sense of how worried you are for yourself, for your home, for your possessions, for your loved ones, because you'll have seen the devastation that Hurricane Helene caused just 2 weeks ago, with 200 dead and debris scattered right across the areas affected. You must be very, very worried.
Yeah, we're definitely worried. I would fully suggest that if you are in the St. Pete all the way to Sarasota and even down to the Naples area, that you definitely evacuate. Obviously, don't do what we are doing here and stay. But if you are in this area, please try to get out of town, go up north to Georgia or North Carolina. It's going to be a devastating storm.
Speak to the weather journalist Nathan Rao, who joins us this morning. And what's interesting about this, not only is I suppose, the ferocity of it all, is the speed with which it has changed, and that brought that meteorologist to tears earlier. I think it's the fastest Atlantic hurricane to ever intensify from a tropical depression to a Category 5. Just explain what's been going on.
Absolutely, yes. Now, this is Hurricane Milton. This intensified from a Category 2 to a Category 5. That's with wind speeds now of up to more than 157 miles per hour in a matter of hours. You saw that meteorologist look absolutely astonished when he described a drop of 50 millibars in 10 hours. And he was right to. That is absolutely huge. If we talk about UK weather, to put it into some context, and we refer to the Great Storm of 1987, which we called a weather bomb or an explosive cyclogenesis, that dropped 24 millibars in 24 hours. So this is absolutely colossal and really, really powerful. The other thing to note is that it is going to move right across the Florida Peninsula as a fully formed hurricane, rather than dissipating and dying, as hurricanes often do. This is intensified so rapidly and is moving so quickly that it's going to go right across land, the Florida Peninsula, as a hurricane. And this is what people are so worried about, with gusts of 200 miles per hour, which is absolutely huge. We're talking about something on the scale of the worst hurricane in 100 years, a historic event. I've heard it being described, and it truly is. This is an absolute monster, and people in the region have been advised to evacuate by the mayor because of the storm surge, which these things can pull up as they crash into the coast. And an absolutely good idea. This is not one to mess around with, and if I was in the area, I'd be leaving.
Nathan, if it keeps its strength up, and it'll take a long time to wind down. I've seen it in the past where we've had storms on that eastern coast of America, and they eventually can make their way to the UK.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we've never had a hurricane in the UK. We can't get hurricanes. They are tropical features. But what we can sometimes get is the remnants of hurricanes. And that's like a little bubble of energy that's left over from the hurricane that gets picked up by the jet stream and carried up into the North Atlantic and can affect our weather. We'll be seeing that a bit in the south with Hurricane Kirk today. That is an ex-hurricane that was in the Atlantic earlier this week. It's been picked up in a jet stream and is moving towards us. Hurricanes cannot survive the colder waters of the North Atlantic. So a drop of only 2 degrees will kill a hurricane in a matter of hours. And so however strong Milton is now, and however strong he is as he's in those tropical waters, he will dissipate as he moves into the Northern Atlantic, if that's the track that he takes. And if it gets picked up by the jet stream and carried towards the UK, that could do one of two things. It could bring us some wet and windy weather about a week, 10 days down the line. Or if it moves further north, it could pull some warmer air in, depending on where it goes. So we sometimes get the knock-on effects of the remnants of hurricanes. We don't actually see a hurricane in its full glory.
Well, Nathan, we've got to cut across you because there are political storms brewing in the United Kingdom, in England particularly. And we want to go now and speak to Robert Jenrick, who is one of the contestants, shall we say, for the leadership of the Conservative Party on this Wednesday morning. Robert, are you feeling lucky?
Well, good morning, Eamonn. Very nice to be on the programme. Look, I'm delighted to be well placed as we go into the final ballot of Conservative MPs later today. Hopeful that we can get into the final, and then it'll be up to the Conservative Party members to choose who they think is best placed to take the party forward into the future.
Well placed, but leapfrogged by your colleague James Cleverly. What do you think's going wrong for you? Because you were the favourite.
Well, there's always horse trading in these things, particularly as you enter the final stages. I'm really pleased to be in the top two and looking forward to the ballot later today. Very well placed, I think, to go forward into the final. But on a serious note, what really matters here is who is going to address the big challenges facing this country right now. And that is what I've tried to do throughout this leadership contest, whether it's securing our borders, getting growth going again in our economy, or fixing the NHS and our public services. I've set out specific policies, not platitudes, ways in which we can regain the trust and the confidence of the British public. And all the polling suggests that I am best placed to win back the millions of voters we lost to Reform and those that we lost on our left to the Lib Dems, regain the common ground of British politics. And that's what matters, because unless we do that, there's no future for the Conservative Party. We will face years in the political wilderness. I don't want that for the party or for the country. And so the case that I'm making to colleagues in Parliament now is support the person who's going to provide serious, professional, competent leadership that's focused on the big issues facing our country.
And what, Robert, would be the issue that would require your attention at that level? What do you believe is the most serious issue that has to be addressed?
Well, throughout the contest, I've said that whoever you are, whether you voted Labour, Lib Dem, Reform, you name it, there are three principal issues: the NHS, immigration and the economy. And I've put forward serious, specific policies to address those. But the first thing we've got to do is get back the Reform voters that we lost. And if we don't do that by having someone who's got real credibility on this issue and has a track record, as I did when I resigned from Cabinet because I felt it was so important to the future of the party and the country, we'll never do that. And the clear stances I've taken, like leaving the ECHR, massively increasing the deportations of illegal migrants from our country, and having a cap set by Parliament for legal migration in the tens of thousands. Those are the policies that are going to restore the trust of the millions of people, small c Conservatives, who should see my party as their natural home, bring them back to the Conservative Party. If we don't do that, then I'm afraid there isn't a future for the Conservative Party.
That sends the signal that the lessons that you have taken from this terrible loss for the Conservatives at the last election is that you weren't right-wing enough. Now, you've got people on the left of your party, if you like, more centre ground, where you've got the former Justice Secretary, Robert Buckland, saying that this talk of leaving the ECHR, and of which you're the only one in contention that's proposing that, makes the party look weird. You're comfortable with taking the party in that direction?
Well, I don't actually see this as about left or right at all. I see it about reclaiming the common ground of British politics. Millions of people in our country who have voted for all different political parties care passionately about securing our borders, about controlling and reducing immigration, about being tough on crime and terrorism, and having a more united and integrated country. That's what I want to see. That is the territory I want the Conservative Party to be firmly placed on again. And as regards the European Convention on Human Rights, I have come to the firm conclusion that we will not secure our borders. We won't get foreign criminals out of our country. We won't tackle terrorism unless we do that. It is not reformable. It's an organisation of 46 countries, from Iceland to Andorra. You'll never get unanimity to change it, so you have to leave. And that is what I want to persuade the public of. If we don't do that, then I'm afraid we will not get a grip on those really important issues. And the public are not going to give us a second or a third chance if we don't take a serious action now to fix these problems.
Well, before you do that, you've got to persuade some of your parliamentary colleagues to vote for you and get you into that final two. So, is it a question, who do you want to see in that final? Who would you like to be up against? Or are you just in a position where it's the Keep Kemi Out campaign? Because the theory is that she'll be very, very popular when it comes to the membership.
Well, the arithmetic suggests that James Cleverly will be in the final, so there's a question now for my parliamentary colleagues as to who they want to have alongside James, whether it's myself or Kemi. Of course, I have great respect for Kemi. We do have different positions on some of these issues we've just discussed. I advocate, for example, leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. I think that's very important if we're going to get a grip on our borders. But the polling suggests that I am the best placed candidate to win back the voters that we've lost to reform, as well as those on the left as well. And there's a YouGov poll that came out only a week ago that showed that I was ahead of James Cleverly amongst the members. So I think I have a very clear path to winning the contest, and more importantly, because it's not about the party, this is actually about our country, to winning back voters more generally and getting us back into government. If we don't provide serious, credible leadership on these issues, we're going to be in the political wilderness for years, and our country will be in the hands of Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party for a very long time. I'm not prepared to allow that to happen.
What about this tension between the membership and the MPs? If, as you say, the arithmetic puts James Cleverly, who's most popular amongst MPs, in the final two, and the membership choose somebody else, aren't there lessons in history that this doesn't work well? IDS, Ian Duncan-Smith, Liz Truss, or even on the left, you see Jeremy Corbyn. Even the person who invented this system, William Hague, says it was a mistake and it doesn't work. How do you right that tension between the two?
Well, look, I respect the members of our party. I want to give them renewed role and respect. I don't want them to be cut out of this process. I have been touring the country, speaking to thousands of party members and listening to their views. The policies that I brought forward respond to their concerns, as they do the general public. And I want to ensure that our party is a more democratic organisation, a mass membership, proper campaigning organisation once again, and we return central office to the service of the members. That is my agenda. I do not want to cut out the membership. But I've also been very pleased to secure support from across the parliamentary party. So I think I'm uniquely well placed to have the confidence of the parliamentary party and to be giving voice to the concerns of the members as well.
Okay. Robert, I suppose a big concern was the infighting within the Conservative Party prior to the election. And people will be asking, if you don't win, if you don't become leader, could you still serve under someone who does?
Of course. Look, I believe in this party. I've been a member of it since I was 16 years of age. I want the party to succeed because the country needs strong opposition right now. But of course, I'm focused entirely on winning this because I think I am the best placed person to turn this party around and give it the strong and serious leadership, the credible leadership that it needs at this moment.
Well, we wish you luck. That result will come through at 3:30. We'll have it live here on GB News. For now, thanks very much, Robert.
Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. Right, there's just 3 weeks left for you to be a winner, for you to grab our biggest cash prize so far in the Great British Giveaway, and that is £36,000. And here's how it could be yours.
Still to come, lots more after this quick break. See you in a moment.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Well, the first thing on in my mind when I heard about this is, what has this country come to when we're talking about getting kids as young as 6 years old to be jabbed weekly or however often it is, because they are too fat. Where are the parents in all of this? There's three things actually here that are important. Number one is we do not know the long-term consequences of these jabs. So if I had a child and I was going to let them have the jab, I would be feeling like I'm treating them like a lab rat, to be quite honest with you, because we don't know the long-term consequences. Secondly, the manufacturers are clear that some of the potential side effects can be very serious. We're talking about potentially pancreatitis, let's get my word out, and also it lists as a potential side effect thyroid cancer. Arguably, it's called the gamble jab, to be honest with you, because of these potential side effects at the moment. And then thirdly, I come back to the parents. Where are the parents in all of this? Because they are the role models. So it really is about parenting, and it's about parenting from being a role model yourself in terms of being slim and healthy, and not expecting a jab to take your place and other people to take your place. If you have children, they are your responsibility. Think before you breed. The other thing you need to remember with this is when you stop taking that jab, it is highly likely that you're going to put all the weight back on. Now, the thought of a child of 6 years of age, starting with that jab, conditioning them mentally to live with that jab, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely not on.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're trying to get a blue light escort for Beverly Turner into the studio today, but they don't go into the loo, so we have to leave that there. We have got Andrew Pearce. So have you ever had a blue light escort?
Maybe.
Have you?
No,
you were a royal correspondent.
When I was a royal correspondent, and also sometimes when I was in the lobby, you'd be in the Prime Minister's entourage.
Yes.
And I remember being in Gaza City. It was the most hair-raising blue light.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah. I mean, driving at ridiculous speeds around small...
I had a blue light convoy as well.
Was it an ambulance?
You'll never guess who I was in the car with.
Go on.
Roger Moore.
Oh, he's a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
What a great...
We were escorted from Belfast city centre to the airport to catch a flight, the last flight at 10 to 10. And we were very, very late for it because of work things we had to do. And we got the 4 outriders, and my God. And I always remember he was sitting beside me, and he was holding on to a seat. I said, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? He says, I don't like fast cars.
He's James Bond.
That's what I said to him. That's what I said to him. You're James Bond.
Well, maybe that's why too many fast cars in this time. But what's all right for Roger Moore is not all right for Taylor Swift. What on earth's happened here?
This row is going to gather momentum because she got this police escort to take her to her Wembley gigs. What is she, a billionaire, this woman?
No, multi-bill.
What do you get in return for that?
Yeah, what do you get in return for that? And let's think, who got free tickets for the Taylors have got? The Prime Minister, the Mayor of London, who's in charge of the policing, most of the Cabinet. It doesn't look good, does it?
No, it doesn't look good. Especially, she would have had the opportunity to be able to pay for that herself.
She would.
Yeah, and you know, so why did we have just a fuss? She made billions from this concert tour. Why couldn't you just say, yes, I'll pay the 10,000 quid for this?
I know, and people who get burgled and never see a copper, you never see a police officer on the beat, and a police escort is a big deal.
So Will Khan and Yvette Cooper probably defend this by saying that the Taylor bounce, that the economy had this huge
They'll say all
benefit.
of that.
I mean, it did have a huge bounce, didn't it?
It did, but even more reason she could pay for her own place. Prince Harry, what do you think he's going to make of it?
Yeah.
He's gone to court because he said...
Two-tier blue lighting.
Exactly. Free gear Kia. There's so many nicknames to this Prime Minister now, isn't there?
Yeah.
But this is a very bad look, and we are going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the fact the population of this country is soaring to new record highs, even though the death rate now outstrips the birth rate for the first time in 50 years. It's because of immigration. Yeah. It's too high.
There are a number of measures that have just been introduced this year, though, which are likely to change this quite a lot and aren't factored into these figures.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people can panic seeing this.
Yeah, but this is so visas. People, if you're coming in as a student, you won't be able to bring in great family members, and likewise for carers.
Salary thresholds as well.
Yeah, but we've still got thousands crossing the sea. But this isn't about the boats. This is about legal migration. Cities the size of Birmingham coming in every year. We can't carry on like this.
Well, somebody's making it happen. Somebody wants it to happen. Is it big business pulling the strings?
Cheap labour. Drives wages down too, doesn't it? Drives wages down.
OK, and obviously you'll be focusing on the Tory party leadership.
Yes,
you were telling us, I don't know if I can say this, but you spoke to Robert Jenrick last week.
I did.
Or was it, no, Tom Tugendhat?
Tom Tugendhat told me, I spoke to his people again yesterday, that he said, if every MP told me they support me, I'm comfortably through to the last two. I said, Tom, they've lied to you. Because Tory MPs lie. It is a duplicitous electorate. Tom came last. Poor Tom. And I think what will happen today, we've got Badenoch in second place. He's so long the front runner. I think there'll be some jiggery poker, and I think we might end up with Jenrick versus Cleverly. And I think Cleverly's going to win.
You think the membership would vote for Cleverly over Jenrick?
I do.
Really?
He had a very good conference week. He did very well on a lot of platform appearances, and Jenrick was curiously underwhelming.
Interesting.
Very underwhelming, actually.
OK.
My friend, thank you very much indeed. Have yourselves a good show.
Will do.
Thank you very much indeed.
And we'll have all eyes on that leadership contest live on GB News coming through at 3:30. But we say goodbye.
Yeah, whatever you're doing today, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's an unsettled day ahead with some showery rain at times, and these showers could be quite heavy in the south and is going to be feeling cold in the north in some brisk winds. So a fairly unsettled day across the northeast, quite a damp day on offer, some rain and drizzle sticking around through much of the day. Some brighter spells will eventually develop into the afternoon across England and Wales, but there is a risk of showers, and some of these showers could be quite heavy at times too. So feeling cold in the north, particularly in that brisk wind, but in sheltered spots across the south and southeast, and if you avoid the showers, it should feel rather pleasant for the time of year. So those showers are going to continue into this evening, particularly across coasts in northern parts of Scotland, but a few feeding into more inland areas, falling as sleet and snow mainly across the Scottish Highlands. Similar across Northern Ireland, a fairly cloudy end to the day with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle, and that rain that's with us through much of the day sticking around across northeastern parts of England. But elsewhere, there should be some clearer spells to end the day, but can't rule out the risk of the odd shower or two. So as we head through into the evening, that rain in the northeast will eventually ease, and all this cloud will slowly progress its way towards southern areas, still with some drips and drabs of rain and drizzle. But to the north of this cloud, generally a clearer night, but still plenty of blustery showers moving into northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's here where it's going to be feeling cold. A slightly milder night on offer under cloudier skies, but still a colder night than it has been of late. And overall, that leads us into a much colder day, particularly where you do catch those brisk winds. So all along eastern coasts, that's where the wind's going to be particularly strong, and that's where it's going to be feeling rather chilly. And that's also where we're going to see a risk of those showers moving through, similar across northern coasts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. So a cold day ahead, but stay tuned for all the details.
we can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the A1M in West Yorkshire, there are 2 lanes closed northbound at junction 41 for the M62 after an accident. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down at junction 32 at Pontefract with queues from junction 33 at Ferry Bridge. Now on the M62 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 11 and 12 from Birchwood to the Eccles interchange, causing queues. The M57 on Merseyside is partly blocked southbound between junctions 6 and 4 from Kirby to Knowsley. In Leicestershire, the A5 is closed each way south of the A47 at Hinckley after a lorry shed its load after hitting a bridge. The M6 in Warwickshire, the inside lanes closed southbound where a lorry shed its load between junctions 4 and 3 from the M42 to Coventry. And on the M3 in Surrey, there are 2 lanes closed northbound at junction 3 at Bagshot after an accident causing 6 miles of queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past.
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually